Yeah, great. So, wait, MP Paranormal, what is up, man? I'm
Yo.
ready to do this with you guys. So, you guys have been on here before. Everybody else listening, watching, you know that Zach isn't on here. Again, Uncle Sam has Zach by the ass, so he's busy, can't be with us tonight, but he's here in spirit, which I think is appropriate given in this conversation it's going to be about spirits. And yeah, just let you guys reintroduce yourself real quick. But if you haven't listened to the episode with these guys before, please do so. It is episode number 2, I want to say. It's called The Dead Shall Walk because that is your guys' motto. So, but yeah, man, Brian, you want to just tell everybody who you are real fast?
Yeah, for sure. Air Force veteran for about 9 years. Prior security forces, investigator. So investigating's in my blood. Recently separated, turned professional recruiter, and really interested in hunting ghosts. So here we are.
Hell
And
yeah,
I'm
man.
and I'm Dillon Farrell, so still active duty military for 9 years now. Currently at Old Lackland Air Force Base doing basic training over there. Been doing paranormal investigation for since like 2015 probably, and just recently Brian and I refired up MP Paranormal in what was it, November?
Yeah, last year.
Yeah, November, and yeah, we've had a bunch of interesting experiences, and we can't wait to share it with y'all.
Dude, I'm freaking ready. Because the last time you guys were on here, I was honestly blown away by the stuff I saw. Because I have a healthy interest in the paranormal. I watch a lot of the paranormal shows on TV. And, you know, I see like a lot of the evidence that you get on those TV shows, I feel like is not very good. And a lot of it's like, oh man, what was that? It was a weird creaking noise down the hall. But like you guys have some real shit, like amazing EVPs, the scratches. Like Dillon, seems like you get scratched every 5 minutes. So I don't know if it's like, you know, you got sugar in your blood or something.
Me and him were joking earlier before we jumped on here. We're like, why is it always you?
I don't know.
I have no idea. The funny thing about like scratches, and people are like have so many different theories and philosophies or ideologies, I should say, regarding like scratches and stuff. I really just think that it's just spirits that just either want to lash out at you or want to make a point that they're unhappy with you. People will say that, oh, you've been marked and this evil energy is on you, and I'm just like, bro, like he knows. Every time I get scratched, I'm like, I literally like lift my hands up. I'm just like, so what else? What do you want from me? Is this a message? What either scratch me again, do something more, or fuck you. Like pick one.
Right. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. If you're getting scratched by a ghost that doesn't like you, so like, how can there be an ideology on getting scratched by ghosts? You know what I mean?
Well, there's the whole biblical like mark of the beast, where a mark will show up on your forehead or on your body somewhere. So it's like you're claimed by the devil, which is we don't believe that. We think that's totally bogus. We think that some spirits choose to communicate in a negative way, and they try to break your resolve and break your faith and try to scare you and get you out.
Right.
That's literally what it is. And there's so many people that have like this idea that you know, and it's nothing against their faith. I'm not attacking their faith or their positions or their beliefs. I'm just saying is that a lot of people have a lot of notions that if you have a high level of faith, or if you surround yourselves with these like physical or psychic bubbles of energy and stuff, that you're safe from attacks and stuff. I'm like, my idea is that if they want to lash out and get you, they're gonna, and there's nothing that you can do to stop it, because I've seen religious people get scratched. I've heard of priests being attacked. I've heard of, you know, people, all sorts of people that are like, that still get attacked for whatever reason.
So do you guys just not even bother with any sort of like attempt at protection before or after investigations, or
it depends on the investigation? Like if it was really sus, I guess you could say, and we feel like we're dealing with an extremely negative spirit, you know, you could just, there's a vibe to it. Like, hey, we need to cleanse ourselves. Like that vibe will exist or it won't. But hey, I think we're good to go home. Like it was fun. You know what I mean? And there's other nights where it's not fun. And then we're like, okay, so we'll do a bit of a cleansing and say a prayer, so to speak.
Yeah, because every time we leave Hill House, like every single time, like regardless of what night it was, we always anoint ourselves with holy oil and then do the holy water and say, Archangel Michael's prayer of protection and cleansing, and then we leave. And then once we leave the house, we do Palo Santo and other metaphysical, spiritual herbs and stuff like that to the little extra step. But yeah, something like Hill House, we don't mess around with that because that's some serious stuff.
Right. So is that like burning incense, or is this like I have like a Palo Santo like roller, like stuff like that?
It's something about the physical chemical property. So you apply some kind of anointing oil or water, and then the smoke dries it, so it solidifies the cleansing on you. That's
it's like bonding.
The theology or the thought behind it, or the magical aspects, or whatever you want to call it, or the spiritual or religious.
Yeah. So it seems to be the pretty common place you guys go is Hill House. Tell everybody again, like what Hill House is, why that's so special to you guys, and what makes it so ripe for investigation.
So just like all the podcasts that we've been on, I can't talk too much about like the history or anything about the Hill House because that's something that I've communicated with my friend that owns the Hill House. That's part of the paid tour that you go on, which I respect her right to exclude that from public transmission. But basically, the house was a old bordello in the 1890s into the early 1900s. It's been sites of demonic ritualism, black magic, death, gambling, prostitution, the whole 9 yards. And what makes it ripe for paranormal activity is I think that it's one of those very specific locations where there are portals to the other side. I think that there are legitimate like gateways to the spirit world in that house. And I think that there are multiple locations like that across the world, and Hill House is definitely one of them.
So like the whole portal thing, that means like something is coming in and out of it, like at will, basically.
Yeah. Brian, what's your idea on portals?
There's multiple ways you can think about it. I'm not here to tell you which way is the right way. We haven't figured out the way portals work, right? But the math that extra dimensions exist definitely is there scientifically. Perhaps, one plane of existence kind of somewhat lines up with another, and you see something that doesn't make any sense, but it's physical and it's real, and then it fades away. So in a Hill House, if you just stare at any, you ask questions and you stare at any blank hallway, like you will see something. It's a matter of time.
Yeah.
Maybe not your first time or your second time, but like it's you go enough times, you will see something that nobody can take that away from you.
And there's been times that I've been in the house. Brian hasn't seen it yet, but I've seen it twice to where you'll see and hear. So you'll see like a bright white flash of light, and it makes like a popping noise. The first time that I ever saw it, me and my buddy were in the room called the Shadow Man room, and there was 3 of us in there. My buddy Dakota was in the closet that they call the Shadow Man's closet, that people have opened this closet door and seen this massive shadow figure standing in there. I personally opened it one time, and I heard like a come out of it. Yeah, I was like, let me close that door real quick. But I was like, Dakota, go stand in that closet. And me and my buddy Ryan were laying on the bed. He's like, all right. So he goes and stands in the closet. And Shadow Man doesn't like to be called by his earthly name, which is Charles. So he's like messing with him, just seeing if anything will happen. And the room is on the back side of the house, so and all the windows have like blackout curtains on them. So we were laying on the bed, and we just see boom, this bright white flash of light that it was audible too. It made like a cracking noise. And we were super confused, and we like looked at each other, and my buddy Dakota's like, what the hell was that? And then right as when he said that, another one happened. And we're like, dude, that's got to be headlights or something. But then when we were thinking about it, the position of the room to the road makes no sense for headlights to come through the window, plus the blackout curtains. And then that's when we had our first, one of few experiences with Shadow Man. This giant shadow just like crept into the room and stood up on the end of the bed. And he was like 8 feet tall. And he was just like, it was crazy.
I wonder if that loud, like the crack in the white light is some like it entering our plane or something like that.
Could very well.
Yeah, it could very well be that. But multiple people, like that's the interesting thing about this house is that, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't believe in the paranormal because it's not repeatable and you can't document it multiple occasions. It seems to be random, but you can document the same thing happening multiple times, maybe not yourself, but multiple people report the same thing over and over and over. And I'm not the only one who has heard and seen this crack and flash of light.
Yeah.
There's been many people.
Shadow people is something that I have zero experience with, thank God. And I've heard and read from other people and other sources that it's kind of one of those things where talking about it even opens you up to it. And I mean, have you guys seen any like credibility with that statement, where if you're like kind of, you're giving it energy by talking and discussing like shadow people, that it is in a way sort of beckoning them to come around you?
Um, it depends on what you believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I believe we seek to understand things. It doesn't mean we're venerating, any kind of deities or spirits or earthly spirits. We seek to understand what's really going on. So, from that kind of perspective, where you're trying to learn about what kind of spirits they could be or why they could be, I think that's arming yourself with knowledge, and
Mm-hmm.
you're probably better off for that. Now, reading demonological grimoires and performing rituals and things like that, that's where you start to be like, okay, well, now these things are like, you're interested in them, so they're interested in you, kind of thing.
Right. That
But
makes
there's
sense.
some kind of ritualism behind that. Whereas if you're just curious and looking at things from a healthy standpoint, not, wanting these things to be in you or around you, in your
Yeah.
domicile, you'll be fine. It's a matter of faith and it's a matter of strength up here.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
because shadow people is an interesting point of conversation, because there's been the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who have experienced shadow people, and you can see a shadow person at a haunted location, or most people experience them in sleep paralysis. They
Mm-hmm.
experience shadow people. It's got the stranger phenomena, or the visitor.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 4 different types of shadow figures that people report, like a mistly figure, a humanoid looking figure, and then they have the hat man that people see, and then there's also like an in between, like a hybrid, like this misty humanoid. It kind of like drifts back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been written about for thousands of years. Like the word nightmare comes from an evil spirit named Mare, which is an old somewhere in the Isles, UK, Scotland, Ireland, somewhere up there. A mare was a demonic or an evil spirit that would try to suffocate you in your sleep and sit on your chest. And there's been writings of people seeing that and writing about that for way back, like when the thousands of years. You also have the old hag, which is, people have experienced that, which is this witch-like creature figure that does kind of a similar thing. They all report a similar experience, to where something is like sitting on your chest trying to suffocate you. And then the one that's really kind of scary is the Hat Man. The Hat Man is supposedly only shows up when tragedy is to soon strike. I don't know if you ever seen the show The Y-Files on YouTube. Pretty good videos. The dude's very, very well produced those videos, but he did one on shadow people, and one of his visitors wrote in that she had sleep paralysis one night and saw the Hat Man in her room, and her and her boyfriend were laying there, and the boyfriend made some sort of comment, like I can't remember what he said, but anyways, the boyfriend died a month later.
Oh shit.
And there was like a bunch of people that have reported seeing the Hat Man, and something really, really, really bad happened. So they you probably heard it referred to as the Hat Man demon. So this is like this demonic force that shows up and like induces bad luck and tragedy on people. So they're interesting characters, interesting entities.
So like the Hat Man is something that I've spent a good amount of time like trying to like learn about, and like you said, he's like this precursor to tragedy, and I've heard him referred to as like a harbinger, and it's kind of like the same thing when people talk about like Mothman, right? That there's certain like group of I see you laughing, and we'll get to that, but this group of supernatural beings that are harbingers of doom. And you were talking before about the scientific method, so to speak, with like paranormal activity, that in science, you have to be able to repeat something over and over again to show that you can prove that like, it exists or whatever. But you can't necessarily do that with like the supernatural per se, I guess. But there's such a collective experience with the Hat Man, and it all seems to be very, very similar. Now, it could just be like that whole like cultural like zeitgeist that everybody is reading about it, and it could be half the people are full of crap and half the people are experiencing it, and they're deciphering that experience through the lens that everybody else has already kind of put online and they've read about. Or do you think that Hat Man maybe does exist as like an actual harbinger of some sort of doom, like other things people have assigned that role to, like Mothman.
Well, I know that most of the time when people experience him, well, I should say almost all the time people experience him, they're in that state of sleep paralysis. And there's a thing that happens when you are in sleep paralysis, which is called hypnagnia or hypgognia, which is basically like where your muscles are completely locked up. Nobody really knows why the body does that, but there's like this weird state of altered consciousness called hypgognia. I don't even know if I'm saying it right. It's a hard word to say.
Sure.
But during that period, it's scientifically proven that you can have intense hallucinations, auditory hallucinations, and stuff like that. But the question that or the answer for the question that you posed is that there's such a relevant, like, so many people have reported the same thing, and I'm wondering if like these demonic forces and these evil spirits are these real things, and they've been reported for, maybe not the Hat Man, but these shadow beings and these creatures have been reported for thousands of years. If there's a specific entity that legitimately does prey on people that are in this state of paralysis, vulnerability. Now, in regards to being a harbinger of doom, it has been said that demonic forces and unclean spirits, or non-human entities, have the power to influence our daily lives. That they can bring bad luck, and it's really hard to say. But I mean, I feel like there's a level of plausibility to say that if these things are real, which I know they are real. Brian and I definitely know that they're real because we've met them and have experienced and interacted with them. That they could definitely bring bad luck and misfortune on you. It's just like with the Dybbuk box in Zach Bagans' museum. I know everybody doesn't like Daddy Bagans, but like when Post Malone and him were messing around with the Dybbuk box. Everybody knows about the Dybbuk box. They opened it up, and that week, is the week that he left the museum. Like 2 days later, he got T-boned in his Rolls Royce, almost killed him. And then the next day, when he was leaving Las Vegas, his plane tire blew out on the runway, and he almost died in a plane accident. You know what I mean? So there's definitely some things out there that have these abilities to influence your life. Brian, you want to tell them about for example, the gasket covers that we have? The valve covers?
Yeah, so we recently acquired these gasket covers from a good friend. His name's Ronnie Daly in Columbus, Texas, and didn't want to. He's a scrapyard owner, right? He's the owner of several businesses, but the scrapyard is one of his. And he, we told him, hey, we're collecting allegedly haunted or cursed, or just unique or weird or curious items. And he said, I got something for you. And we're like, okay, what is it? And it's these Ford Thunderbird gasket covers back with the 1950s. They're solid chrome, metal, huge, 2 of them. I'm like, well, what's the story with these? It's like the last 4 owners that have attached these to their Thunderbird have all died tragically, within a very short time of installing them. 2 of them suffering, they died in a car accident in the Thunderbird, and then another from a heart attack, and I believe the other from terminal cancer.
Yeah, he had cancer with a non-terminal prognosis, and once he mounted, they're valve covers, not gasket covers. Yeah, valve covers. But when he mounted them on his vehicle, he quickly received a terminal prognosis and passed away within a month.
It's so weird. Is that just something that's attached itself to those objects, I guess?
I couldn't tell you, man. Like, I didn't write the book on cursed things. Maybe it's just a freaking crazy coincidence times 4,
It could be, I guess.
But I mean, he doesn't want to destroy them because he personally he feels like something's attached to it, and if he destroys them, then what is he unleashing? Yeah. So the kicker, I didn't want to take him. I was feeling a certain way, but Dillon convinced me, and we transported it, and we're still here. So, but I didn't install them on a Thunderbird either.
Gotta have a Thunderbird first, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where there's no answer. There's no answer that you could objectively say, like, yes, this is causing this. And anybody that says that they know why curses happen and they know why these things happen is just a flat out liar. And I'll say that publicly. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's just this weird thing associated with items across the world that they're people will say that it's not science, but also people that do believe in science will say that energy is a real thing. And the law of conservation of matter says that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It just transfers state. So if you're a person that believes in the transference of energy from place to place or from state to state or from object to object or whatever, and you take into consideration the stone tape theory, which says that materials that are made out of earthly materials have the ability to absorb energy imprints in them, and under certain conditions or under certain days or time frames that they repeat these paranormal events. So in the sense of that, the event that would trigger this energy to be released, this negative energy, wherever it came from, would be the installation of the valve covers on a car.
Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Dillon. The conservation of energy. When people pass away, they've confirmed this, that the body all of a sudden weighs several grams lighter. And some people argue, well, that's just the air leaving their lungs. But it's like after they flatline and they're declared dead, they weigh less. Like there shouldn't be that much air like out of their body, but they weigh less. So what has left their body that all of a sudden they weigh less, that can be measured and can be repeated? Some people argue that that's the spirit or your soul.
It's like 27 grams or something like that.
Yeah, it's something that can be like defined, like within a plus or minus like variable.
I'm gonna Google something real quick while y'all are talking.
And we were talking about shadow people, Brandon's, and I don't know if we have a bookmark, but we did capture a shadow person at this place called the Old Park Hotel in Ballinger, Texas. It was down the hallway. And it was a crazy capture because we were going to release the video, and I was just doing a final scrub because I was bored. And I'm like, did you see this? And I showed it to Dillon. He's like, why is there a shadow person standing down the hallway? I'm like, okay, so you see it too.
Oh, dude, if you guys can find it, for sure.
Yeah, we have a bunch of like evidence bookmarked for you, but we can definitely, there's another, it's like an hour-long episode because that place is so freaking active. Definitely, if you ever come to Texas, I would like to take you there or to Hill House. Either of those would be a great time.
Yeah, man. When we're talking about shadow people and Hat Man, like his look, right? That type of hat is like supposed to be like a fedora or something like that. And I've heard him also talk about being like wearing a suit. Like those are very period style clothing, right?
There's a place in Victoria, Texas that we went to called the Sixth Realm House. I don't know if we spoke to you about it in the first episode with you, but there's an entity there called the Fat Man, not the Hat Man, but he still wears a hat and he has a suit, but he's like a little bit more heavy set. And he appears as a shadow and kind of follows the owner around. And when she was telling us about the Fat Man, like something started closing my throat off and I had to like gag and I had to like run out of the building. And once I run out of the building and I said some prayers and was just like, like releasing that energy, I was totally fine. But she was talking about this thing that supposedly follows her or like haunts the place or is somehow attached to her or the property. Like it felt like literally something was going like this. And I was like, I could not breathe.
And I think that I have the this really wild Instagram clip from her in front of a mirror if you want to see it real quick.
Yeah, so there's some validity. There's absolutely like physical evidence to this thing that like tried to choke me out. I don't know. Maybe she doesn't like telling the story. It doesn't like being known or identified or heard.
Can y'all see this?
Yeah.
All right, so I want you to look like right here, and I want you to pay attention. So this is her, somebody in the mirror. And I want you to pay attention. I believe this is the owner. And this thing has horns, bro. Look at this. It's in a loop like a boomerang. You can literally, oh, my bad. You can literally see the shadow move off of her.
Is that the brim of a hat? It's kind
of... It looks like horns to me. Look.
Yeah, I agree. It does kind of look, because you can see almost like it jutting off of like the head, I guess.
He's like Hellboy or something.
Dude, it's really kind of wild. Like that's like super scary if you think about it. Like this shadowy mass is quite literally exiting her physical body. Like,
oh, that's what it's doing, is leaving her.
It's either moving away, like it was in the mirror standing in front of her, or it's exiting.
Okay, so
it's like a live photo. She took like a live photo of herself in the mirror, and you know how live photos work. They kind of take multiple frames and those things like leave her.
If you're just listening to this, you should definitely go check this out on either YouTube or Spotify, where you can watch this too. But you can see it like from in front of her face, moving off of her almost. Like I didn't even notice that before because I was trying to look at the shadow to find the horn you said, but like it almost looks like comes out of the middle of her freaking head.
Yeah, it's spooky.
That
For
is
sure.
really
And
spooky.
after she left, I mean, they're very nice owners, and I don't, whatever was going on there, I can't explain it. But when she was gone, I didn't feel that way anymore.
So if that is like the fat man with the hat, or even talking about like the generic like hat man, I think it's really weird when I was talking about like what he's wearing, because if this is like a spirit that transcends time and space, right? It's older than that look of a fedora with a suit and jacket. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And do you guys think that spirits maybe sometimes just show themselves in, I guess, clothing that you would recognize period wise, and that if it showed up in like a suit of armor, right, just to throw shit out there that nobody wears anymore, right,
Yeah.
that it would not be, I don't know, maybe you would think you're going crazy because you're seeing somebody in a suit of armor. I don't know.
It's kind of hard to put all that into a nice, neat box. I think there's different
For sure.
classifications of spirits that are they're capable of different phenomenon, right? So like demonological or shadow people, I think they're capable of just a little bit more. And if they want to scare the crap out of you, then they'll probably choose like their darkest, their nastiest form to let you see, whereas like human spirits, like you'll kind of see them as they were, or how they passed away, or they're kind of stuck in their time. So,
Yeah.
but I can't bring in a demon on a leash and be like, look, this is what he wears. Like he wears a red tie every single time, so it's hard to like put it in a box, but I think anything's possible when we're talking about the paranormal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have a wild picture that I was able to get from a lady that I was on a tour with at Hill House. Like I was running a tour, and she captured this photo from upstairs. Yeah, you want to talk about it? I think this is the Shadow Man, but you've never seen anything like this, I can promise you.
Okay. Dude, I'm excited.
So this character right here is not real. That's not a person.
Sure as hell looks like it.
Yeah, and I want you to know that door frame's 8 feet tall somewhere.
So this person's like 7'4" or something like that, or this
huge
being is standing at like 7'4".
And the interesting thing about this photographer, Dillon, if I recall correctly, what's the interesting thing about her?
Oh, she's a spiritual photographer, so she takes she's like an intuitive photographer, so she takes pictures of just based off of her gut and captures like these strange photos of sorts. But yeah, this one was freaking wild, man. Like look at the size of its head.
It's like Michael Myers, dude. He's like he's thick.
The first thing that came to my mind was Happy Gilmore's boss from Happy Gilmore's, the big dude. Anyway, but what is the red there at the bottom?
I think that might be the railing, like to the staircase, like because the floor
wood.
The floor is like right here, and then it goes out this way, and then right over here is like the entrance to the downstairs staircase, and there's some railing right there. But the particular quality of shadow people that's very unnerving is look how like Vanta black he is.
Yes, absolutely. Like you could almost make out if he has hair, or if like maybe it almost looks like could be wearing a ball cap, kind of like you and I, Dylan. Just kind of like the way his head's turned.
So there's a character in Hill House. His name is Russell, and they call him the Stomper. And for a while, what's interesting about that house is that house is always evolving. Like there's new spirits coming into the house that make themselves known. And we haven't heard from Russell in a while, but when he was very prominent, you would hear like it would always happen around like 4:30 in the morning in the attic. Then you would hear coming up the stairs. I'm talking like someone is stomping their feet, like a 300-pound person up the stairs.
Yeah.
And you would hear this deep,
let you know they're there.
This deep voice, like way deeper than I can ever make my voice. This guttural, like
I've experienced. Voice. I think I've experienced him the first time I was there when you were asleep.
Yeah,
Scary.
like the guy.
That was the most unnerving time ever.
So you guys have spent the night here. What are you talking?
Oh yeah, every time, dude.
Like sleeping.
All the time. Yeah.
Dylan
What
was
the fuck is
asleep,
that like?
and yeah, it was like 4 or 5 in the morning, and I heard just just like super. I'm like, oh, cool, like Dylan's awake, you know. But I'm like, was that Dylan? I was like looking at him because it just sounded weird. It was like really gruff, and I
Yeah.
looked. I'm like, no, he's dead asleep, dude. And then I heard the boot steps like boom. It was like a clop 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 clop, but like heavy, and it was coming closer and closer to me, and I was just staring at it like in disbelief. You know, you're just like, what the hell is going on right now? And all of a sudden, I
You were
hear
like
somebody.
staring in the.
Yeah, he says my name. He says Brian, and then something grab. I feel like ghost fingers literally make physical contact with my inner thigh, and I jump and I run outside and I smoke. I chain smoke 2 packs of cigarettes until Dylan. That was it, dude. I'm like, I can't stay in this house for another second. That's the only time I've ever been that way because it was so
I just woke
unnerving.
up
And it was just
alone. Like,
there's like a chain of
Right.
paranormal events where you can tolerate things, but like that was crazy. But like
Yeah.
if they keep escalating, and now it's like physical touch, and like you can literally feel the fingers and the hand, and like it's grabbing you, and it's like wanting that. That's when it's personal, dude. It's too much.
Yeah.
Like it's
Dude,
not just
that's
for fun
wild.
anymore.
Is that the worst thing you've ever experienced as far as a spirit interacting with you, like
That and
physically?
Toby, when we possibly accidentally like evoked him into the space, when he
Yeah.
went ballistic for 4 hours straight, and we were
What
fearing
is
for our
ballistic?
safety pretty bad.
Yeah.
yeah.
That was
What
probably
is
I
ballistic?
don't think anything can top that because of the prolonged activity and how intense it was and how it was following us and how it was always like very
Yeah.
uncomfortably close to us but not right like up on us and just
Yeah.
hearing audible
So
death threats. I don't
so
know how else to
I
describe it.
know I know who Toby is just because like you guys have told me about him before. But for those who don't know and listening right now, maybe didn't listen before, like who is Toby?
He
Dylan,
yeah, so he's the so I know he's real, right? He to me and Brian is the objective demonic force of Hill House. But to the grand public, he is the alleged demonic force that inhabits Hill House. And Toby is the name. The story that I was told is that Toby is the name that he chose because when the girls who lived in the house were playing around with some things that they shouldn't have been playing around with, and they summoned something through. Paranormal Activity was the hit movie at the time, and the pop culture name for the demon in Paranormal Activity was Toby. And I don't know if they said it out loud, and he picked up on it, and he's like, "Yeah, let's go with that. I like Toby." But there's another theory that we have that I believe is much stronger, is from the Book of Tobit. So the Book of Tobit, long story short, is a theological story about a woman named Sarah and her 6 or 7 to be husbands that were killed by the demon Asmodeus. And if anybody watching or listening has ever seen The Pope's Exorcist, that's the demon from The Pope's Exorcist. He is the 5th spirit, or he's the 32nd spirit, infernal spirit in the Ars Goetia, and he's like if we're talking like Dragon Ball Z here, he's like power ranking number 5 of hell.
Okay.
Right. And so basically the story goes is that Sarah, this demon had a lust for her because Asmodeus is the high demon of lust and greed, and that she was to be married to multiple men, and every time she would try to get married to these multiple men, Asmodeus would show up and unalive them. Okay. Basically, through some means. So Sarah had her final husband, whose name was Tobias, and he reached out to the Archangel Raphael, who gave him instructions to go to the riverbed, catch a fish, cut out its gallbladder, light it on fire, and that will draw out the demon. And then Raphael came down and exorcised him from the two of them. So we believe that if he is Asmodeus, it kind of tracks and makes sense that if Tobias is the only one that's ever successfully been involved in an exorcism of Asmodeus from the earth, then maybe the name Toby would be something that he's familiar with, like Tobias, because we call him Tobias all the time and he doesn't like it. He doesn't like to hear the name Tobias, because we always mess with him. Tobias, where you at, right? Because that's the formal name for Toby. And we've talked to him about, hey, we're gonna go get Raphael, and we're gonna kick your ass. And we've heard growling, we've heard upset noises from Toby, and when we bring up Raphael. So we think, and then plus we read out of the Lesser Key of Solomon and kind of like accidentally evoked him, and that's directly linked to the instructions on how to commune with Asmodeus. So there's that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So he just basically spent 4 hours yelling at you guys and threatening to kill you, essentially.
Yeah,
If there was any safe from that.
It's all in our video. We can pull up the short and kind of refresh the viewer's memory.
Yeah.
I got you, dude. Like, what even keeps you safe from that? Like, I feel like
faith.
Something like they can just transcend faith.
Well, I mean, that night it wasn't on film, but I'm like, you ain't getting in any of us, man. You can get as mad as you want, like give it to us, but you ain't gonna get us, you know. And then he replied with, "All you are mine." Which in the moment I was just like, in the moment it just sounded like but like if it, with the compressed audio, it was literally like, "All you are mine." So he's like still trying to like, you know, talk shit or get at us. So I mean, if you go to Hell House and you experience him, it's not a game, dude. Like there have been we just spoke with Ryan, you know, Dillon's really good friends with Ryan. He's the main tour guide and investigator at Hell House, and he's witnessed a legitimate possession on New Year's Day of several individuals. Like it was this whole filming crew came in. One woman got possessed. She was speaking in tongues and like walked outside in the snow, like on New Year's Day. Kathy or Sonny helped, you know, destroy that. And then one by one, like this big film crew, like dwindled down. Like all these people were just feeling sick and had to leave. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not a trivial thing to like mess with such a negative spirit like that all the time.
So like what then is like the difference between her, that happening to her, something that's serious, and then when you guys are actually calling it out and you haven't experienced something at that level?
I think it has a lot to do with your fortitude, like consciously. I make the example. Do you have anybody in your mind that's like a real small, frail person?
Yep.
All right. So think about that small, frail person. If you were about to get into a fist fight, would you rather fight Brock Lesnar or would you rather fight that small, frail person?
The small, frail person.
Okay, so people in the sense of, I'm not saying this person in specific, but if you were a demonic force that had to use energy and had to use effort and had to use all these different things to get inside the mind and the spirit of an individual, wouldn't you rather choose the person that may potentially have some stuff going on in their life or may have some decreased abilities to protect themselves, like consciously, or you know what I mean? Like for us, you know, I don't know anything about this person, so I can't speak to them typically, but when you hear a lot about like demonic possession or spirit conduiting people, which is basically like if you've ever seen any horror movie with a psychic and the psychic is like and there's like speaking in tongues and stuff like that, right? That'd be like a conduit, right? They're kind of like pulling the sorry, I'm animated, but pulling the strings of like puppeteering a person to relay a message. And you hear a lot about people that are depressed, have anxiety, have like crazy home situations, dealing with abuse, drug abuse, alcoholism, stuff like that. They're easy vessels to jump into because their mental buffer is not as strong as someone who's just like me. Like Brian's always telling me, and I understand him completely, but he's like, dude, you gotta like because I have all the haunted items that we get shipped to my house. And I bring them inside and I open it up, and you know my wife's like so about it. Some things she's like, no, don't bring that in the house. The other thing she's like, okay, we can open it up. But he's always telling me like, hey, like, you know, you need to get that shit out of your house. And he knows I'm stubborn about it because
like, I've explained that if they show up, they show up. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, but I have this mindset.
Balls.
You know how they teach about the bulletproof mindset, right? So like when you go into an active shooter, seriously, and
dude,
you think about
ghost Goggins right now, dude.
Basically, and it's like if you go into an active shooter,
the proton packs.
Exactly. If you go into an active shooter thinking that you're going to get shot or you're scared about it getting shot, the likelihood of you getting shot actually increases because you might hesitate or whatever in that aspect. I kind of have a bulletproof mindset with spirits. Like I know they have the capability to do something to me, but I just will stand there with my feet planted and not give a shit about it. Like I think I just put this big giant wall up in front of me. Like, all right, if you're going to do something, you're going to have to try really, really, really hard to do something bad to me and to get me to freak out. So otherwise, like either do it, fuck you, or you know what I mean? Like that's just my stance. I'm just like, I don't care. Like, you know, so I think that in regards to protecting yourself, that's the stance that you have to take. Like knowing that, you know, you might be proverbially shot in the active shooter response of ghost hunting, right? But also knowing that you're protected and that you are a very hard target, and it's just like being like cocky, arrogant, like confident, you know, and just being like, all right, you can't hurt me. And if they do hurt you, then you'd be like, all right, well, what else do you got?
Right.
And the ghosts are like, oh shit, I thought that would work.
Right. So just faith of steel, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, they can physically affect you, and they're trying to psychologically like break you down, but the whole point is to get evidence. So it's like we're almost like in a weird way like happy when things just get out of hand to like just keep filming.
It is a weird dichotomy for sure. It's like,
yeah, like just keep filming.
You want to feel safe. Yeah. Dang, man. So that's a crazy story. This chick gets possessed of this house. Like, you said it was your friend, like, are you able to expand a little bit more on that story? Like,
you want me to, Brian?
Well, and then there's the story. There's the story of the hoofs in the snow in that same kind of filming sequence. There was fresh snow, shortly after or before these possessions occurred, and they're not deer hoofs. It was a bipedal creature, and there's obvious like hoofs in the snow, and they're going up to the house, and they just disappear. They're completely vanished.
I wonder what that is, man. Because it's
like, Toby, bro.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's Toby. He's like some kind of sabbatical, like goat, like demonic. Has those characteristics. Has hooves.
I meant more like the hoof thing, like obviously anything you look at, like demonic, satanic stuff like that. It's all like a depiction of like a goat. You know what I mean?
You're talking about the entity Baphomet, which is either a symbolistic expression of dark magic or satanic rituals, or it's a symbol of rebellion. Like, hey, I don't believe in God, but this is a cool symbol to hide behind, or
Where is there like an origin to the whole like cloven hoof goat thing? Okay,
yeah, that's what it goes back to. I'm gonna butcher his name. Dillon, you can take it. I think it was Eliphas Levi or Eliphas Levi.
Yeah. Eliphas Levi, he was a 18th century French occultist, and basically he was the modern pioneer of like modern Satanism. Now, obviously, Anton Szandor LaVey spun up in the 60s or 70s or whatever. He really blew up the scene with the Satanic Temple, but Eliphas Levi was the first one to do it. He is the one who inspired people like Aleister Crowley. Like he's like the OG like occultist. That's written about, and he had depictions of the Baphometic the symbol of Baphomet. So like the Baphometic symbol, he was kind of the one that wrote the books about like the high sigil of black magic, which is like the satanic pentalpha. And a pentalpha, for anybody that doesn't know what that is, people call it a pentagram. A pentagram is not demonic. A pentagram is the embodiment of the five like spirits, like earth, wind, water, fire. Earth, wind, air, fire, and spirit. Sorry. And then the inversion of that is the pentalpha, which is it goes into as above, so below.
Got you.
Yeah, and he kind of went into that whole thing, but the Baphometic symbology is kind of interesting because the Satanic Temple will say that it represents the divine, the divine feminine and the masculine, and seeking not the flame on the head is like a symbol of seeking knowledge and all this different stuff. But no one's even sure if like Baphomet is a real entity because the origins of it go like way back. Knights Templar far.
Mm-hmm. They got persecuted for supposedly, allegedly, doing adultery with Baphomet, and but really they were just after the artifacts and their treasure, and just trying to destroy them as an entity or as an order, so to speak.
They were because obviously the Knights Templar were based in Christianity, right? They were an offshoot of the Byzantine Empire and all that stuff, and yada yada yada. And they have connections with the Masonic Brotherhood and the Stonemasons Guild, and they were accused of heresy by the Catholic Church. And when they were put up into
homosexuality, adultery, false idols. Heresy.
Yeah. So
just throw everything we can at them,
Yeah, right. What?
Yeah, so they brought up this entity that they were praying to this false idol. That was the main accusation, was the heresy, the false idol worshiping, and they made up this story about, or supposedly made up the story about this creature named Baphomet, who's like the Sabbatic goat, the unholy, the embodiment of the unholy is Baphomet, and that's why you see it used as the
that's where the term Black Sabbath actually came from. It was they would give people who would worship the devil would receive the dark Eucharist, and it would be somebody dressed as a goat giving some foul liquor for people to drink and then beat their chests and worship the devil or the moon or whatever the heck's going on. So it's this whole thing that was just spun up, and either it's true or it's not, or it's just a weapon used to politically or religiously destroy your enemies for power. It's up for debate.
There's actually a book written in the 16th century, so it's from like 17th century. It was written in like 1600 Salem, I think. It was called the Witches Mass, and it talks about like it was like a real like handwritten accord of the Devil's Communion, which is literally just an inversion of a Holy Communion, like eating these black spiked wafers that hurt the tongue, and it goes into depth about how like the devil shows up in black garb, everybody's wearing black garb,
and you kiss his
they
butt.
you lift the tail of the devil and kiss him and lick him in unsavory places. No, this is like it's a real thing.
Yeah, I actually read it out loud over a podcast, and I got like some weird vibes, so I stopped immediately. I was like,
if you watch our podcast on the Anton Zender LaVey and the Satanic Temple, we have the whole thing in there.
Okay, I have not seen that. I'm gonna have to watch it. That's
one of my favorite podcasts.
Okay, you said you felt weird, Brian,
Yeah, I felt like, in the Holy Spirit, or, you get just good vibes and it's tingly and it's just kind of coming over you. It was coming like from below.
The other way.
Yeah, it was coming from below, first of all, like in my inner thigh, like coming up. And I'm like, nope. I'm like, where's my holy water? This is done.
It was heading for your ass.
Maybe, dude. Or, maybe it's just subjective association with, I'm reading something really creepy. I start to feel a certain way. But
I think there legitimately is something to be said about, I don't know if we talked about this in the last podcast that we did, but I'll repeat it, just about spoken word. And if anybody's religious, and it talked about, because I'm non-denominational. I believe in God, angels, and demons. I just don't assign myself to a specific religion. But in the Bible, I'm not a Bible reader, so I wouldn't know. But I'm pretty sure it says that He spoketh the word, and upon it, on His word, the universes were created. Right? God spoke the universe into existence. And if you read a lot of texts and ancient texts and scriptures, it talks about the actual like saying of things that are like perpetuating energy into the environment. That intention and saying specific things manifests real life energy into your space. And there's been a lot of accounts of people reading books that are occult or dodgy in the evil energy realm, and they start to have these very, very, very strange experiences where they get headaches or they get nauseous or they'll start seeing things. Brian had a personal experience with that, if he wants to touch on it briefly.
We spoke about it in
Crowley's work.
We spoke about it in your first episode, I think. But
we did.
Basically,
we'll let people go back and listen to it.
Yeah, I believe demonological grimoires. If you do read them, just know that if you're potentially opening yourself. You're talking about like, do you think studying these things opens you up? It depends. If you're reading a demonological grimoire written by like a master, magic practitioner, whatever it may be, then maybe it's something about the words and just reading it and going through it and maybe experiencing what they were experiencing. It could be like a true account of like them encountering a demon. That might be that demon being like, all right, like this guy's next, So just keep that in mind.
That whole concept, that is obviously, like, I think that safety is paramount for sure, right? And what you believe is, I feel like, going to influence your thoughts for sure. But I find it interesting because there's another book. I don't remember. Part of me feels like we've talked about this before, but I'm just gonna say it again anyway. The book Communion it's about aliens. Have you guys ever seen that book?
No.
Okay. So there's the same thought process behind the book Communion and reading it, and then it kind of opening you up to alien abduction and encounters with aliens, extraterrestrials. And there are tons of people. This book, I want to say, was maybe written in the 70s, something like that. But it is somebody's account of their interactions with being abducted and other really crazy interactions, like even like having sex with female aliens and stuff like that. And that reading it invokes those, those aliens to come visit you, and that you're going to have some sort of experience of, the fourth kind or whatever. And it makes me wonder, because there's a lot of people, especially now, that there's a very hefty blend of spiritualism and the whole UAP thing that's going on right now, where a lot of people have that thought process that UAPs are demons. I'm sure you guys have seen that on social media.
Aliens are demons, or is what a lot of people are saying. And it's funny because Aleister Crowley painted or hand drew the first demon that he summoned, and he looks like a freaking gray. And this is like century before the first account, the pop culture account of grays came into the media. So
exactly, and that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that I almost wonder if, like, that book Communion, right, just that's the only book about UFOs I know that people talk about, is opening you up to it. If maybe there is some sort of truth to that whole thought process about aliens or demons, just because, like, reading that book, if it's the same effect on reading, like, let's just say, like you said, like a demonic grimoire, and you could be opening yourself up to things. If these are extraterrestrial beings from another planet, I feel like reading about them wouldn't bring them to you the way that you're reading about demonic presences then bring it to you, because that's a spiritual thing.
I'll be honest, man. Like, even looking at their sigils, they kind of look like circuit boards, and they're all kind of crazy. Like, it's like you can look like an archangel sigil and be like, "Oh, that's really interesting. I like the way that looks." And then you look at like a demon sigil, and you're just like, "I don't know if I like that." You know what I mean? Like, it's just, maybe it's subjective association, but it's just, it starts to make you feel uncomfortable. It starts to make you feel a certain way. So
I think there's a lot to be said, and I might get a little conspiracy here on you, if that's all right.
Go for it, man.
All right. So there was a one of my first point before I get A to J to Z to B here on you is that I think there's a lot of information about like spiritualism and ancient knowledge that these things come from that have been taken away from us. And the only reason I say that is because I watched this interesting podcast with Julian Dory with a gentleman named Matt LaCroix. And he's like a leading, people don't like to listen to these types of like ancient history, lost history individuals. But long story short, this gentleman was making a point where he was connecting the dots from the Great Deluge, which he said was done by the Anunnaki from Nibiru and all this stuff, right? But he starts to like connect the dots with like Noah being like this ancient king of Sumeria. His name was Zayasutra, yada yada yada. But he gets to this point where he talks about ancient Rome and when Rome fell. Okay. And when Rome fell, Constantine separated. It was the emperor that stood up the Byzantine Empire, right? So the Byzantine Empire was stood up in like 1483. And if you look at the time frame from the standing up of the Byzantine Empire to the Holy Wars to the Brian, I think we lost your image here. To the Holy Wars to the Spanish Inquisition. Okay, it's like 1438, and then the Holy Wars came after, and then the Inquisition came after that. But the thing that I found was interesting is that Rome used to be a polytheistic. It was a polytheistic empire, right? They had all the gods, and when the Byzantine Empire was set up, automatically they shifted to one religion, which was Christianity. And the thought that was popped up is, how do you control the world? Oh, well, if you erase the past, you then hold the key to write the past and the future. And if you look at how the Crusades, which came out of the Byzantine Empire, the targeting areas of which they ransacked, razed to the ground, stole things, were places like Alexandria in the Middle East, where all this ancient knowledge existed. And I'm wondering to myself how much information has been seized in the name of Christianity. And I'm not talking bad about Christianity. I'm just talking about history. We know these things happened. We can't ignore them, right? Like, these things happen. How much information has been stolen and destroyed and burned to the ground, like the Great Library of Alexandria? How much sacred knowledge about spiritualism and these realms that these ancient societies and cultures talked about was lost to the ether because like the Byzantine Empire just like ripped it away. So like, you know, there's a lot of things that because they believed in this, you know, they talk about speaking things and they write about in their texts all the time about the underworld and these guardians and these spirits and that these interactions that they had, and people are like, oh, they were just ancient peoples. Nobody.
Yeah, they were ignorant, they were uneducated, and they blew things out of proportion. But
Which I don't think is
they though?
I don't think that's the thing. I think that these things that we talk about today, they've been around for so long that they probably had some sort of form of understanding because they wouldn't be so obsessed with it. Now you could talk about how, you know, they didn't understand this, that, and the third, and that might be true for a certain percentile of the things that they dealt with. But I think that, you know, when it comes to like the spiritualistic beliefs of these individuals, like they were like, I think that these things were written down somewhere, and these things were, you know, taken away, and, you know, in the name of a monotheized world, which ended up, you know, starting with, you know, the big booming of Christianity. And I know that's kind of like a tangent, but like I said, like, I think that there's more to this in regards to the spiritual world than we think we know. I think that they knew a lot more.
I don't think it's too big of a tangent, to be honest with you, because I want to address a couple of things you said, right? So like Constantine, his splitting of the empire, you know, Western Rome was falling apart. Eastern Rome was kind of on the rise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he sees this astrological anomaly in the sky and makes the decision to convert to Christianity. And then, you know, kind of goes through this process of making Christianity the official, you know, religion of Rome. And that's not the first time a leader has said, hey, an entire civilization of people, we're going to go from a polytheistic culture to now a monotheistic culture. And I was just talking about this with our last guest, Luke Caverns, about there's a pharaoh. Everybody knows who King Tutankhamun is.
Tutankhamun.
Right, exactly. Yep. So his father was named Akhenaten, right? So King Tut, when he was born, his name was not Tutankhamun. He changed his name to Tutankhamun. And it was originally Tutankhaten because of the god Aten, right? And his father basically said, we are no longer polytheistic. We are now a monotheistic empire, right? And it caused all these issues. And there's this whole thought process behind it. If you look at, there's this really famous statue of Akhenaten, and he looks like an alien. It's really weird. He does not look like a regular human being, just some of his features. And there's a lot of thought process now, like medical, looking back on it, they think he had, I don't remember the specific disease they say he may have had, but it's one of the traits of the disease is a man having like feminine qualities, like wide hips, could even develop breast tissue, stuff like that. And that, you know, he could be crazy for all we know, right? But this thought process behind converting into monotheism, on monotheistic, you know, religion, there might be something.
Klinefelter syndrome.
I'm not sure. You'd have to give me the description, or maybe if you found it, the correlation between Akhenaten and that disease, then we'd know that's what that was. But maybe there's something to what you're saying, Dillon, about the conversion there, not just with the lost history aspect, making people forget, you know, who they were and where they came from, but maybe if like we're staying on this conspiracy vein, there is like there's like the race of aliens that wants to control the planet, right? Now we're going like really super tangent. Maybe that's the whole point, right? Is to convert to, you know, the stupid human beings on the planet now are only going to believe in one thing. You know what I mean? And that's way easier, like you said, to control. You know, but we're not that simple, I guess, as human beings.
Well, I mean, you're talking about like the pantheon of like the possibility of like other earthly spirits existing. We recently had a really interesting experience with one of our voodoo dolls that we've collected, and we learned, you know, me and Dillon took it upon ourselves to, you know, respectfully through a sociological lens try to understand what voodoo is, right?
You taught me.
Yeah, we're getting into it, and we learned about you know, that they do believe in one master creator of the universe, and his name's Bondier. That's the name of their one god, you know. But the earthly spirits that serve different purposes, that intermediate between you know, the living person on Earth, and Bondier, the kind of removed. He's too perfect and too supreme to kind of meddle in mortal affairs. So there are earthly spirits called Lawa that hold different kind of classifications and purposes. that you can invoke with the magical practice of voodoo. And within that, one of the main ones is Papa Legba. At the beginning of every single voodoo ritual, he is basically given offerings to open the doorway, so to speak, between yourself and whatever law, or maybe you want to attempt to send a message to Bondier. He's the one who opens the doorway. He represents the crossroads between life and death.
Okay.
And we had a really interesting experience, and I think I showed you before, Brandon, but I think Dillon can pull
You
it
did.
up. So the
Yeah, this
spirit's
was
name,
really
or the
good.
Lawa's name, is Papa Legba, and we're asking kind of what's present here with us. We had Laura with us, who was using a pendulum and a spirit board to kind of help bridge that gap, which was a whole new experience for us as well. But we caught an EVP during that session, which she was using the pendulum to try to figure out like what the letters were. It was actually spelling out Legba, which is Legba. So
Yeah.
Papa Legba. And we heard this EVP after the fact. We didn't hear it at the time. But this isn't fabricated in any way whatsoever. And you can clearly hear what this electronic voice phenomenon tries to say to us.
Yeah, I don't know how this application picks up audio, but hopefully you can hear it. I tried to boost it up and clean it up, so we'll see here. I say the cue is I say something like make a question. I'm like, my boo, and then you hear the voice.
MYB. Okay.
This is the text over here.
No way.
Look how it's like it's almost
like
like
it's
walking
going all
It
over
is.
the place. That's a MYB.
You?
My boo.
Whoa.
Could you hear it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like that's ridiculously loud, man.
One more time.
He kind of has like a twang to him too.
Yeah.
My boo. Yeah, you can like hear, man. Like it literally says like
Legba.
I'm Legba, which is me and Brian were talking about it, and it's not that I had this. I try not to say things that are objective without having it happen again, right? But it was one of those things that we were talking about where you cannot just sit there and say that doesn't say I'm Legba, and because it definitely says I'm Legba, and the fact that it said that is actually profound on the same level as us evoking Toby by accident and him saying that he was going to kill us because we were reading out of a 17th century grimoire about how to control demons. It gives, at least to me, now a skeptic is going to be like,
you're the second time that this has happened, but it's a totally different belief system, right? So like, what are we tapping into? Something that actually exists? Are we tapping into what everyone else believes? So now it's subjectively real to us, but even though it's an objective like form of evidence, like how do you begin to even explain that?
Skeptics are going to be like, oh, this is just what you want to hear. And I get that. But like, you got to understand from our perspective is like, we've been doing this long enough to where we know ghosts are real. We don't need we're not searching for further truth that ghosts are real. We're searching for documentation of events that happen on paranormal investigations and sharing it with other people. Like we want other people to believe in ghosts. We're good. Like when I'm listening to these and he's listening to these, I'm not like fishing for evidence. I'm not like, oh gosh, are ghosts real? Are ghosts real? What am I going to find? It's not at that point anymore. So I'm not listening for ghosts anymore. I'm listening to what I hear and tagging it. I'm like, holy shit, that's cool. I can't wait to share this with people. Right. That's our perspective. So, but voodoo is the oldest, one of the oldest religions in the world. It's older than Christianity. It's older than Judaism. It's older than Islam. It's almost 7,000 years old. It's very, 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 very old. Yeah, it's Africa being the root of civilization of modern humanity. I mean, that's where it stems from. So with I don't know if you want me to kind of clarify what like voodoo.
Yes.
All right. So
yes, please.
So voodoo is an African spiritual ideology, right? It's a religion. Okay, it's people. Brian was talking about it in the video. He's like, Hollywood has blown voodoo out of proportion because voodoo in itself is not a bad. There's yin and yang to both sides of religion, right? And it has the same thing. You have gods that are good and you have gods that are bad. Just like you have like I'm just like Greek gods, right? You have one that's for festivities and partying, and then you have like Hades, who's the god of the underworld, or Ares, the god of war, right? And they have the same thing, but you know, African voodoo and Haitian voodoo are two different things. So this doll that we have, she belonged to Mama Lola, who is she came from Haiti in like 1928, and she ended up in Brooklyn for a long time, and then she moved down to New Orleans and was a voodoo priestess at the Voodoo Temple in New Orleans. And this doll was was blessed by her, and it would make a lot of sense if it was done with a blessing, that she would have blessed it in the name of Legba, because he is like the frontline like deity, god of their religion. And so where Haitian voodoo and African voodoo kind of start to separate is that Haiti was a colonialized island, right? And with that, the colonizers who had faith in Christianity would impose their religion onto Haiti. So a lot of the symbolism that you see coming out of voodoo is Haitian voodoo, like the veve, which is like Legba's sigil, for example, looks like a cross. It has the base form is a cross, and it has a bunch of different symbolism inside of it and stuff like that. But that even spurs further to when enslaved people came to the colonies in America and were forced to be baptized by their slave owners, or their owners. I hate to say that, but that's what it was. And with that, when they were trying to practice their faith on plantations, they were scared of being persecuted or punished for practicing devil magic, so that they would mask their rituals and their practices with Christian aspects. So there's an infusion of Christianity, Catholicism with African voodoo. And that's where you get this Haitian meld of voodoo coming from the Americas. And then you go a little further into Louisiana voodoo and hoodoo, which hoodoo is as Brian likes to say, the stabbing pins and dolls and cursing and hexing people. That's hoodoo. Hoodoo is not necessarily bad, but it's spell work, it's spellcraft, it's hexes and spells and potions and all these different things. But people believe that voodoo is a bad thing because animal sacrifice is very important to them. Bones and animal sacrifices, not in the name of the devil, but in the name of offering things to these loas, these loas, and that's what we did. With the doll at Bed Wolf Ghost Tours, we offered her earth. We lit a candle on fire. We gave her a beer for water, and I gave her my breath on the backside of the doll. And Brian can attest to this. As soon as I let my breath out of my mouth, it was like an explosion of energy happened inside of that room. It was freaking insane.
What does that mean? Like you could feel just like,
I don't know, all of a sudden there's a presence that's otherworldly or supernatural, like coming about you, and you can feel it all around your body. It's something that, like, we're used to, and we're like, that's awesome. Like, that's to us, that's evidence subjectively on camera. But if you're with us, which Brandon, I'm sure you will be, at some point in time, you're doing this with us. We're gonna take you. You'll feel it too. And when you see them freak out on the ghost shows or whatever, and you're just like, whatever. No, that is evidence. That's probably because nobody can take that from you. You can't communicate it through a camera, but when you're in the presence of a spirit. Everyone knows what that feels like. Everyone has had an experience and knows what that feels like. So for people who don't believe in ghosts, why are you afraid of them? Right. That's like the ultimate, like, nobody wants to believe in ghosts, but everyone's afraid of them, and everyone has a story. So what's the skepticism about? Like, why shouldn't we seek to understand what is really going on with the world around us? And that's why we're doing this. It's not it's this great spiritual journey, honestly. And it's learning about other cultures and other religions, and not looking at it through that this is demonic, this is evil, this is that, this is this. We're seeking to understand, that people believe this, and is there any truth to it?
Yeah. And people too, like they'll be first to jump to the gun that say that dark matter is real, even though that it's only a theory, right? And they're like, well, there has to be real because a guy in a white coat said it's real. I've said this time and time again. I personally believe that if you gave the amount of funding that is given to like the Large Hadron Collider, and you put the brightest minds in the world together to figure out if ghosts are real, they'd find something.
Yeah.
I am sure of it. It's just that it's not a concern to humanity. Like you don't benefit anything other than the peace of mind, I guess, that when you die, that's not the end. But other than that, there's no benefit to society, no benefit to humanity, but also on the same side of the coin, I think that if you were to say that, if spirits are real, right, I think it would destroy a lot of people's faith.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Like,
if you look at the Bible, every other freaking word is ghost, spirit, or demon. So it's like, why is it so far-fetched to believe that these things are not just something to scare you and set you straight? And I do believe demons serve their purpose. Otherwise, why would they exist, right? They are scary. They do make you want to believe in good, right? Because this thing is obviously evil and it makes you feel awful and you want to feel good. You don't want to be scared. So they serve a purpose, whether it's sinister or not. It's just, they exist. So why do they exist? Why are we experiencing this?
Right.
So there's good and evil to both sides. And maybe there is no good. Maybe there is no evil. It's just we're trying to figure it out. And, it's just asking the questions and experiencing them, not reading them in a book, not theorizing about them. It's experiencing them, capturing them. So, experience is better than belief. And I wasn't always a believer about anything spiritual or God or demons or angels or anything like that. I spent most of my life being agnostic, just like my father. And I'm not. I'm probably the most spiritual, theological, religious person that's ever come, in my bloodline now.
But it's so profound. Like I was telling Brian about it, like when we first went to Hill House a few times. I said, because I told him, I was like, hey, like it might take a couple of times for us to be here, right place, right time, where Toby is, in the house. And he thought I was full of, and I'll be honest, like I don't know, like full of shit is the right word, but he was like, okay, it can't be that like serious. Like there can't be something that serious that exists in on Earth, right? And I said, I just want you to take in consideration that when this happens, and we talked about in the last podcast, is that this reality shifting event occurs to where it's so profound and it's so real, and this thing is evil, and that it's not a human being, that it quite literally will shift your perspective on the entirety of existence.
Yeah, for me, it was like cleaning up like sin and like all these other problems I had in my life. Like I'm sober 6 months today. It's just like trying to perfect myself as like I was a good person, right? Now I want to be a great person. I just want to be the best version of myself that I can be. And really, that's all religion and spirituality is seeking to do. Either you believe, in the archetypes of like angels, gods, or demons and what they represent to make you a better person or to set you straight, or there's some truth to it and they actually exist. I'm not going to tell you what to believe, but I know objectively that these things do exist on our plane of existence. So
there's too many things like we were talking about the nightmares and stuff earlier. Like, do you mind if I read you something my brother sent me that was really interesting?
Yeah, go for it.
So he sent me a long message the other day about this dream that he had. And my brother is Brian has talked to Ryan before, and my brother is a very outside the box thinker. He thinks very differently from most people that I've ever met in my life. And so basically, he said, I just had the most insane nightmare dream, whatever you want to call it. I had to escape a dream eater that disguised itself as everyone I cared about and used, and this is a bit like frantic typing, so excuse me, and used how I was working with them, the person I knew in my dream, to learn about how effective it was at keeping me sleeping, to tear them apart and keep reforming differently as I gained awareness in the dream that I was sleeping, until the point it had me directly on my back and it was over my face, and I gained enough awareness to move my arm up an inch in real life and wake up in the exact same position it had me in, on my back. I've never woken up sleeping on my back, not a day in my life. I just burned Palo Santo and I'm fucking shook. He said he had to fight to get free from it, which exactly tethers to my position. And it felt like my eyes were a quarter open in desperation, at least the last half hour, but it didn't stop. Wild, 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 fucking scary, wild. I knew I was dreaming, but he said in its domain, and then wake up and have full timeline memory of it, not just in spotty detail. And he said it was this figure with a faceless figure with just a hood over its face.
Whoa, that doesn't sound like a dream.
Well, yeah, and it was just like, it just popped into my head when he was talking about, I know I should have talked about this earlier in the podcast, but something about him saying like these things are real and these things interact with people and that people experience them all the time. and I showed him this picture. I said, did it look something like this? This is like an artistic rendition of like a mare.
Okay.
And he said, and he literally texted me. He goes, that's exactly what it looked like, but it had a hood, and I only saw a glimpse of his lower face as I figured out its disguise each time. Like when he figured out its disguise, you could see like more and more of it. And he said it looked very similar to that, like this like grim like lower jaw and teeth and like raisined face and black eyes and stuff like that. I don't know.
It's terrifying.
Emaciated.
I feel like that something like that is like what I've come to understand to be an elemental that has just been here since the freaking earth has been here.
I've never experienced an elemental or anything that I could put a pin and be like, yep, that was an elemental 100%. I'd never. Same thing with shadow people, you know, other than me maybe hearing other people's stories and be like, oh, maybe that was Russell or whoever the shadow person is in Hill House. I didn't physically see it. I heard it and I felt it, you know? So it's like, it's so hard to identify things and know for a fact that this is the classification, you know, unless you get a really badass psychic or a medium with you, which, you know, you got to take whatever they say with a grain of salt too.
Yeah. What do you guys identify as an elemental then? Like, obviously, you know, you can't know what it is exactly, but like, as you understand it, what is it?
It's a spirit that holds reign over a specific element of the earth.
Okay.
And that's a real broad box.
So you have like a fire elemental.
Yeah. So to say that like, oh, you know, the water ones look like dolphins or the earth ones look like like I don't know. You know, it's like for me, I've never known or classified like, dude, that was like an elemental, that was a pixie, or that was like the king of the gnomes or something. Well, there's magical grimoires about like the king of the gnomes is someone you can petition to. You do the exorcism of the earth and you find your lost car keys or, you know, your lost treasure. He'll tell you where it's buried or where it's hidden, you know? So it's like, there's the whole like magical, I don't want to say demonological, it's like spiritual realm of dealing with these elementals or elements, exorcisms of different aspects of the earth.
I do have a weird story if you want to hear it.
I always want to hear it.
Creatures of the woods and the earth. So
I got one after you then.
Okay, so I'll make it. It's a long story, but I'll shorten it up.
Okay.
We were out. I don't know if you know who the Paranormal Files are, Colin Brown. So I was hanging out with them. I got to meet them and hang out with them while they were filming an episode, and some years back. And I had to work the next day. I had to drive all the way back to Oklahoma City from Mineral Wells, and that was weird. I just heard a very strange noise to my right that made me turn my head. Anyways, all the way back to Mineral Wells that morning. And so this is when I drove my Challenger, so I didn't have an extra key. And we're up on the back of my buddy Ryan's hill, which is a story of a group of white settlers that was massacred by a native tribe back in the day. So they're doing a video up there. And anyways, I always carried my keys around my neck on a lanyard, always. That's the way I always keep them, never put them in my pocket. So we're up there, we're doing the thing and blah, 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 blah. I go all the way down the hill by the time that they're done filming. And I'm like, all right, say my goodbyes. And I go to grab for my keys. My keys are gone. While we were up there filming, we had this interaction with this very strange cat. Okay. Now, my buddy's lived on that property for a few years now, and he only has 2 neighbors, and he's never seen that cat in his life. It was a tabby cat. It had 3 toes on each foot, and it was really, really, really big. Okay. Like, there's a big cat, but it was a domestic cat. And it would just follow us around. Just the whole night, it would just follow us around, and it would disappear and it'd come back, disappear and come back, which is very, I don't know about like wild feral cats or whatever, but I don't know their behavioral patterns. Anyways, so we're like, okay, so we got to find our keys on this giant hill in the middle of the night. It's like 3:00 in the morning. We're like, okay, this is not looking good. It's my only set of keys, right? So we go up there and we're looking around everywhere that we were. And who shows up? This cat shows up randomly. And I'm so desperate at this point. I made a joke earlier in the night. I said, Skinwalker, tell me your secrets. I was making a joke about the cat being a skinwalker.
Yeah.
So I'm super desperate at this point. I said, Cat, I'm making a joke to kind of like ease my pain here. And I'm like, Cat, have you seen my keys? And the cat just takes off. And intuitively, I just follow this cat. It takes me all the way up the mountain, all the way to the top of the hill, or I should call it a hill. Leads me through the trees where we were kind of putzing around, and it sits. And I swear to God, on my wife's life, sitting in the other room, the keys are like 2 feet away from this cat.
You never told me that story.
Holy shit.
I get chills just thinking about it. Now, even weirder, it felt like the whole night that the cat was like almost like this like spirit that was like, because they talk about the chief that roams the property, the chief of this tribe. And Ryan, he's like, yeah, maybe it's the chief checking in on us, making sure we're not meddling around in the property, because there's like burial sites up there and stuff like that.
Right.
And yeah, anyways, so the cat's like following us around all night. So I thank the cat. I said, holy shit, I don't know what just happened, but thank you for finding my keys. And we take off. We look behind us, and the cat is following us all the way down the hill. We get around the corner, down the path. The cat's still following us. And I maybe 30 seconds, I didn't look over my shoulder. We finally get to the gate where the horse pasture is, to the house. Look behind, the cat is completely gone. Never saw the cat ever again.
That is wild, dude.
So I don't know about like these like earthly spirits, or like this was like a skinwalker or what, but I know skinwalkers are not supposed to be good. I don't know what it was, but it was like this weird like forest spirit creature thing, cat, that helped me find my keys, escorted us through the whole property, and just disappeared and was never seen again.
I don't think it's too weird to think that it could have been this like Native American spirit just manifesting itself to you in the form of a cat. I don't think that's that weird.
That's what it seemed like, man. Like, I don't know.
Like for most people. No.
Yeah.
No, for sure. But like, I don't know. It'd be like, I don't know. That just doesn't seem out. If we're focused in this realm of thinking, that doesn't seem that weird. You know what I mean? Like,
I had a similar experience when you were there, Dillon, at Hill House, with the owl following us like everywhere we were.
Oh yeah.
Like no matter what room and no matter what time of the house, it was just like ooh, 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 like an owl just outside. I'm like, dude, like these walls are thick, and I'm like, is there even a tree near us? Like, it sounds like it's literally right outside. And like, we never saw an owl. We never heard its wing. Well, I mean, they're pretty silent anyway, but there was never evidence of an owl. We just heard it freaking almost stalking us or following us, or no matter where we were, we heard this thing, and it was just like right. You couldn't figure out where exactly, but it sounded like it was just outside the wall.
Yeah, it was hooing, and it was interesting because a lot of videos that have like skinwalkers. Actually, before I get to this point, I want to hear your story because I don't want to cut you off.
Oh no, you're good. Keep the story so you don't interrupt the flow, and I'll tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, like with skinwalkers, people do videos on like Skinwalker Ranch, which not the actual skin. If you ever watch a video that says we filmed on Skinwalker Ranch, they're full of shit, because that's a private ranch in Utah that is highly funded for extraterrestrial research and this whole thing. There's a valley south of Skinwalker Ranch that everybody goes to, that somebody owns. Anyways, a lot of these videos, they hear owls hooting, and in a lot of cultures, owls are a harbinger of death. And in a place where there's so much death and so much hauntings, I don't know, like this owl, if this was an actual owl or what, but
there's a massive correlation between owls and UFOs as well.
Yeah, there's that whole movie called like the Anunnaki like principle or whatever, where they see an owl and then they get abducted, but the owl's like the first thing, and the owl shapeshifts into this thing that like paralyzes them and takes them up.
Yeah, I've not seen that movie, but I'm familiar with people recounting stories like that where they will see like a white barn owl outside their window every night, and then eventually they'll realize that they have missing time, or that something really strange happened to them while they were asleep or whatever. And it's like a precursor to almost contact with aliens, essentially. And again, it goes back to that whole thing we were just talking about before about, aliens, demons, stuff like that, like the correlation, what sort of correlation exists there. I think that's kind of weird.
Well, there's
a lot of overlap.
You got to look at thrones too, like the different classifications of angels. Like think about like biblically accurate angels, and like there's spinning discs and things like the Book of Enoch and the things that he saw. Like it sounds like a freaking UFO, dude. Like it's this weird spinning disc in the sky that like has no form or has multiple forms, and it's just unexplainable. Like, dude, that's literally the Tic Tac. Like literally these things that like these Navy pilots are seeing, and we're allowed to know about them now. But maybe they've been freaking happening since the dawn of time.
Dude, I think they have, man. And if you have a really big interest in this, you should read a book. I've mentioned it on a couple of other episodes, called American Cosmic, by an author. Her name is Diana Pasulka. And she was not that long ago on Concrete Podcast, which is now rebranded to Danny Jones Podcast. But she wrote this book, and she interviews all these people. But
essentially her hypothesis is that these communities now in modernity that live together, they try to call on aliens. They have all these practices to like interact with aliens in the sky, that these UFOs are passing them knowledge, all this stuff. The experiences that they have and describe are eerily similar to experiences that people that have been venerated as saints in like medieval Europe discuss, right? Not just necessarily medieval Europe, but like that's what kind of comes to mind when you think of saints, like people, you know, back in that era, right?
Yeah.
People have been venerated as saints. That these people describe having these otherworldly beings, glowing bodies, passing them knowledge, healing them, telling them things that they'd have no way of knowing, and that these people today similarly experience these things, and that perhaps what they were experiencing 600 years ago, maybe in the 16th century, is this today, but in a slightly different form to essentially mesh into how human beings today understand reality. You know what I mean? It's actually a really, really cool concept. And I think that she's really onto something. Should have her on next month. If you guys have an interest in it to like hear about that. But I think there's a crazy amount of overlap between all this stuff. And it always makes me think of the concept of the unified field theory, right? Like you have this unified one theory about science. Like you have this one unified theory about paranormality, supernatural, that you're probably never going to ever reach that point, but that you're in essence talking about the same thing, no matter how far apart you are. The delta is how far apart you are on the paranormal spectrum. And like you're talking about CERN before, all these things, like, you know, science, I think is figuring out what people who are religious think in the same way that people who try to experience and do experience the paranormal are experiencing. It's just this consciousness and energy that you're all trying to figure out, except you're going down different roads heading at the same destination. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm a full believer that religion and science can meet in the middle, and they should.
CERN also has a statue of Shiva in the front of their.
Have you seen that ceremony they did when they got done digging like the tunnel near CERN? It's really creepy if you've never seen it.
I haven't seen it, but I heard about it.
It looks like a ritual. But anyway, yeah, dude. So the story I was gonna tell you is definitely not as cool as your cat story.
The cat, dude.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my dad, his first duty station was at Langley, which is in Virginia, for those who don't know. And we lived in base housing. And the housing complex that we were at, like, butted right up against, like, what I recall at 6 years old as like a forest. Who knows how really big it was. And we used to go into the forest and play pretty often. And for whatever reason, there's just a lot of quartz there in that wooded area on the ground.
Yeah.
And I know now that there's a lot of correlation with quartz and paranormal activity. But we would go in there routinely, and we'd always kind of find the same spot, and we would like play like fort or whatever, like, you know, like dicking around in the woods, and what you know, 6-year-old boys do, right? And very often we would go back to the spot we were at, and there would just be piles of quartz, like right where we had been, and we would always go back to. And it's kind of one of those things. We all go to school together, we all get home, and then kind of meet up and go off and play together at the same time. So in hindsight, thinking about it, none of us really would have had the time to go to the woods and make piles of quartz where we play and then, you know, disappear before any of us could meet up and go play together. You know what I mean? But there would always be these piles of these quartz, and like we would lean all these like branches and stuff against some of the bigger trees to like have like a hideout or whatever. And there would be like right in the middle, like kind of like the makeshift door we had, there would just be a pile of quartz, these white rocks.
Wow. Oh, I just had a thought that popped into my head from something I was told by somebody in the past. I don't know if I'm not a Bigfoot guy, but people who have had experiences with Sasquatches have said that Sasquatches will. Did you ever like leave anything, or like you said you built stuff, right? Like built forts and whatever?
Yeah.
People have reported, and I actually know someone personally who has talked about going out into Oklahoma and leaving offerings for these Sasquatch, and that in return they would take the offerings and they would leave behind geodes.
Whoa.
Dude,
like they would leave behind
I've never thought of
stuff
that.
like that.
I've listened to like enough people talk about fairies that I've always kind of wondered if it was like fae related, like the whole like offering thing. But I've never heard of that. That dude, that kind of,
I don't know.
could you
Maybe
imagine just like 6 years old dicking around the woods and then getting washed by Sasquatch?
maybe it thought that you were like building stuff for it, and it's like, oh,
I believe
cool,
Native
thanks. And they're like,
Americans, they believe in a form of Sasquatch too, but they understand it as an interdimensional being.
Mm-hmm. Zach and I talk about all the time. We just jokingly call him interdimensional Bigfoot. But there's a lot of people in that community that do think that that's how Bigfoot gets around, essentially, and that's how it remains unseen, is by moving between the planes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at a map, you type in Google right now, Bigfoot sightings, it's literally covering like every inch of the United States. So.
Yeah, dude, where I live and not that far from me in California is just overloaded with Bigfoot sightings. I live near the redwoods.
Let's go. Let's make a vid. We'll take some leave.
Come out here. We'll do it,
dude. Outdoor investigation, man.
Why not, dude? Let's go camping. Exactly. Do some tapping on the trees and shit. I'm down.
Tree smacking.
I'm definitely going with a gun, but just to feel better. But yeah, I'll definitely go do that. That would be awesome.
I don't know if am I ready to have a Bigfoot show? I don't know. I'd have to think about that. That might be another reality shifting event.
I mean, you got to go for other
legends. You faced La Llorona?
Yeah, we did a video on La Llorona in the Uvalde area, like the Frio River in Texas, and a place that we went out to do a story on, just like local legend. Right. We had I'll be honest, and it's fine that I can say this, like, we didn't have any preconceived notions that there was going to be any sort of paranormal activity that would occur in the place that we were going. We're like, hey, this is where a local legend of a woman in white, the hollering woman, La Llorona, has been witnessed. Let's go do a video on it. Let's see what we can find. And I took my dog with me because Lucy's my little Ghostbuster, and people don't believe me when I say this. And Brian got to see it too. I told him a story about when she was in Yorktown with me, but she sees and things and hears things that are not visible to us. She's very good at it. And it was like chock full of like paranormal stuff, like cat balls are going off. We heard like weird noises. We heard a crazy, scream in the woods. I actually have it on our shorts here.
Yes. Yeah.
Hold on, let me see.
It sounds like they're coming after me, and then somebody splashes in the water, and then after you hear this like gruff voice, like a demonic voice, is like, with blood.
Ooh, dude, you guys get the craziest shit, bro.
We're outside, and we have like wind cats on our microphones, and we're being dead silent, dude. So I don't know why we pick up these voices. Like, what are they?
I don't know how you guys aren't more popular. You should be.
We're getting there, man. We do it because we love it, man. At the end of the day, if we don't ever make a dime, I don't care. I'm still gonna do this.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, you guys have great evidence.
Captured a bone-chilling.
Sorry about the TikToky, how the kids are these days.
Was it the spirit of Sandra letting us know what happened to her? Or was it just an animal? Let us know what you think in the comments. Let's roll the footage.
Can you let us know how you died, Sandra? If you actually are Sandra?
Oh, God.
What was that?
It was so loud.
Is that how she died, bro? We're like in the middle of the woods too. I was actually like, I'm like, should I charge the rack around?
No.
Like, what's going on?
And the mic had like weird interference. And then he'll turn the camera to the right and he'll hear something.
So cold. Yeah, we're feeling like cold
That was
all of
not
a
an
sudden.
animal. That was Lucy, dude. But
I picked up on it
Did
too.
you
I looked in the direction. I knew something was like trying to like get my attention, and I got
play that again. Run it through one more time.
All right, we'll have to go through the stupid intro again.
We captured a bone.
I don't want to listen to this again, so we'll just pause the freaking.
Okay. Yeah, but what's interesting is I go to the right because I'm feeling like something's like rushing up on me or something's like approaching me, and then I catch the voice and then I go back to Dillon. Like I'll do that sometimes in an investigation. It's weird.
All right, let's let it roll here.
let us know how you died, Sandra. If you actually are Sandra.
Oh, God.
What was that?
Is that how she died, bro? I got mad tingles.
Bro.
Does that sound like an animal or a woman?
No.
Oh, man. Feels so cold.
That was not an animal. That was Lucy, dude, but
Whoa, bro.
Did you hear it? It says with blood.
Yeah.
But it was so loud. It was like so
that
loud.
100% sounded like a chick screaming, running from something.
Yeah, and you hear the water splashing after, and there's nobody on the other side of that river for maybe
I think it was like 900 meters.
50 to 100 miles up into the mountains, and way in the background there was nobody.
There was one small like shack looking property, like 800 to 900 meters on the other side of the ledge. But like Brian was saying, like habitable like people, we were on a 60-acre plot, private cabin, 60 acres. And the people to our right, there was nobody there. And the people to our left that were like 12 acres away onto our left and our right those cabins were not occupied.
No, and that was wandering around in the middle of the darkness, like at midnight or 1 in the morning. It was honestly that just the experience of like being out. I mean, we were armed and everything, being smart, but that's probably the scariest investigation is just being in pitch black.
What else did you guys capture out there?
Oh, some cat ball activity.
It's voices.
Yeah, and like
let's hear some voices, dude.
What else? Maybe one or two spirit talkers that were kind of like interesting. But we got lots of other stuff, man. I know we're about an hour and 35 minutes. I know Dillon had a bunch of like reels and like other things.
Yeah, let's do.
We could probably fire those off
evidence,
if you have any questions. That way people who are interested in us, we can kind of show the evidence that we've. So I think we spoke last time on April 28th. So.
This one is interesting. So this was our new Portal 5 device. So these are just little clips. Like you asked, like, hey, why aren't you guys more popular? Brian gave his response, but I think it's more like we push like full length videos, and like Paranormal Investigating isn't all like fucking fireworks and 50 cals all the time. So we just picked little pieces of our videos that like interesting things happen. So the new Portal 5, which is just like a filter for the spirit box, I'm filling with it and I'm trying to like fine tune it, and you hear this very prominent voice come through saying he's coming back. You can hear that? Now, I think that was the Portal 5, but I'm not entirely sure if it was the Portal 5, but it was really creepy. It's like, he's coming back. I'm like, all right, who's he? Like, what's that about? This was interesting. We had the, let me stop that. I'll pull up this one at the Masonic Lodge, Masonic Temple that Brian and my wife investigated. I was at work, and Brian was downstairs in the basement where a lot of activity, where even the Masonic brothers will not even go downstairs at night because it's really creepy. And he asked, like, can you manifest as an orb, or can you move a chair or something like that? And
I saw him manifest, and I'm like, do it again, and I did it again. I'm like, oh shoot.
Yeah,
there's your repeated experience.
Can you push one of these chairs?
Let's roll it back just a touch.
Okay.
Moving back into the main hallway. Can you appear once more as an orb on my infrared? Can you push one of these chairs?
You can literally hear the chair, like something sliding in the background.
Yeah.
Can you appear once more as an orb on my infrared? Can you push one of these chairs?
Yeah. You can literally hear that. It's weird. And there was a bunch of other stuff that happened. Like this video, we want to be really respectful to the Masonic Temple and the Masonic Brotherhood, and like we don't know anything, obviously. So like we're not going to touch into like. I'll briefly say that there was a lot of stuff that came through the Spirit Talker that we have information from our sources that are going to remain anonymous that correlate with a lot of Masonic information.
Like what?
I don't want to talk about it publicly.
Oh, okay.
That's all right. Yeah, it's one of those things to where like it's like dodgy stuff that we want to like keep respectful to them.
I'm surprised stuff that we even let you come in and do that then.
Yeah, I'm really surprised too, and the fact that Alice is a woman, and some of the evidence we were getting is like, this is a men's house. Leave now. Kill her. Like,
whoa.
Like, yeah, the spirits that were there, they were, I don't know, they were like, hey.
So what were they hoping you guys would prove?
Huh?
That it was something was there, or like what?
No,
It's a
I
public
mean,
tour.
the property's historic, right? So, you know, the Masons have been there since the early 1900s or late 1800s, and it's been, um, you know, several madams of, you know, the Prohibition area and all that have lived and died in there, and doctors performed experiment long before the Masons were involved, right?
Yeah.
So it has the stain, it has everything that could make a haunting, and I can guarantee you it is 100% haunted by multiple spirits.
Yeah, it was just a Curious Twins Paranormal. It does like a walking tour and like an investigation for a couple hours of the temple. And Brian and my wife were like, "Hey, let's go, let's film." And it was quiet and not that many people around because everybody was upstairs. And they just went down and they just did some hardcore investigating. And like, I know that I was leaving like a cliffhanger, and I wasn't coming off any sort of sideways about not wanting to talk about it publicly. But it's just one of those things where, like, you know, that's a very serious thing to a lot of people, and we want to make in the utmost respect for it. So if you want to watch that, it's in the later half of the video. You can fast forward to the downstairs portion in the night vision, and there's all that stuff in there about some numbers and some words and messages that make a lot of sense to Masonic brothers.
Interesting. I'm definitely going to tell. I have a friend of mine who is a very active Mason, and I kind of want to watch that with him just to get his thoughts and opinions. But so you said, Brian, that the 20th of April was the last time we were on here together. So what?
Yep.
It's October. What's the craziest thing you guys have captured or experienced between then and now?
I really want to. I want to play him the Scream and the Manifestation in the History Museum. So
Yeah,
you think that
the
would
Scream? Man, just every investigation where like I get activity and it's just like it's something different, or I'm encountering something. I'm just grateful for that. So I don't like to put them in a box and be like, this is like because every spirit's different, every experience is different, and that's why I keep coming back, dude. Because I'm like, at this different place, at this different time,
right?
A different spirit said this, and I'm like, well, here we are, and we captured it. I'm just grateful to capture anything.
So like what Dillon said before, though, you guys believe in ghosts, but you want other people to believe in ghosts. So you're going to show somebody the best evidence you have to get them to believe. What would be that best evidence?
It would be Toby at Hill House, but I feel like we share that one so much, and it's just we have so much other stuff to show. It's not all about just demons and evil stuff. We capture, maybe restless spirits or whatever it is.
Oh yeah, I'm here for all of it.
That's the most, because it's an audible voice phenomenon. That kind of.
Yeah, this one is an audible voice phenomenon that we heard. This dude, by the way, he has he has a museum called the Parapeculiar Museum in Austin. If you're in Austin, check it out. Like, Damien is a fucking super awesome dude.
Okay.
Really cool guy. If y'all are in Austin, go check him out. But we were in his museum doing this. It is haunted. Very, 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 very haunted.
Okay.
But yeah, we captured this disembodied scream. It didn't sound so disembodied when we heard it. It sounded like a real woman, but here you go.
Right.
Might have been that. I can't wait for you to listen back to the audio and tell me.
Whoa.
There's gonna be a replay.
I can't wait for you to listen back to the audio and tell me.
Dude, his face, his reaction.
I'm just standing there like,
we heard.
I'm like, that gotta be like something outside. Man.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yes,
I'm like,
it was just. Yeah, when I did that, I did. Yes.
Screaming, dude. I'm getting chicken skin.
Look at me.
Yeah, dude, that's.
Are you coming closer to us then?
There was a part where I said, I'm getting really cold. There was this whole sequence of events that was like wild. I'd have to dig for it. It's kind of in the middle of the video, but like there was a whole sequence of events to where I was like, I'm getting really cold right now. And the spirit talker goes, can I touch you? It asked me if it could touch me. And I don't know if that message was sent from it before or after the spirit talker, but I was like super freezing. But yeah, that's like ball busting audio evidence right there. That was like a full blown murder scream. And then we have an actual apparition type thing. And I'll tell you the story. I was with my grandfather at he is in the Historical Society of the Bentonville Museum, which has some great plays for him. Bentonville, check it out. My grandfather, Ramsey Townsend's one of the curators and on the board of directors and stuff. But anyways, we were sitting in here, and my brother's right here, and we find this black thing. I don't even know what you want to call it. Just look for yourself.
We absolutely had to review this portion.
So it's going to happen fast, and then excuse the shitty, narration AI voice, but on the replay. But I'm gonna
Which way? You're not moving around.
I'm gonna shift to my left here in a sec.
It is too.
Died very recently. Died very recently.
It's like right here.
Area around here?
You had to have heard that. Did you exhale or go up?
It happens really fast, so we're gonna slow it down here for you.
Of evidence. This may very well be the first physical manifestation captured on film for MP Paranormal. Watch again after we hear a very chilling and disturbing sound, followed by a physical manifestation that we have concluded is not Dillon's hand or any other explainable phenomena. The only way we can describe this is
you can see the thing, dude.
Yeah.
Like, it's like this black orb.
Yeah.
It looks.
It has like if that's like energy, that white spot, like, you know what I mean?
It reminds me
black,
of the dude from the Ocarina of Time or whatever, and he's got the crook, and he's like sitting, and he's got a hood, and he's just got like the one red eye. It's like it's like the hood of like that
nice reference.
Shaman or like whatever.
Yeah,
dude, it's really strange. And my grandfather texted me something that was very, very, very interesting. That I'll let it play one more time.
Yeah.
And then I'll read you his text message from what he said. But it looks like an arm. Yeah, it's weird. It looks like an arm,
it looks like
with an orb in its hand. Yeah. So there was that. That was very interesting.
Wild,
and he sent me a text message that resonates a lot. Let's see here. So he said, a couple of observations I can offer. The manifestation you observed to my right seems to be coming from the area of the old trunk. That was my great-grandmother's trunk, which Grandma Rita kept safe until she died. And my Grandma Rita just passed, a handful of months ago. This was June 22nd, and then she had passed maybe a few weeks before this.
Okay.
The spirit talker said died recently, very recently. Grandma Rita passed away just 3 months before this video was filmed.
Wow.
So that was her mother's trunk that was recovered off the back of a wagon, and then that spirit talker said died very recently, and this manifestation reaches towards my grandfather, which is her son.
Whoa, man! So to me, I feel like you probably think that was her.
I mean, conclusively, I can't say, but I mean, it just he seemed to believe that, that had something to do with that old trunk, which was sitting right to the left of off frame there where those dresses were. The trunk was right there next to the dresses, and that's where the arm came from. And it almost like reached out towards my grandfather.
That whatever it was looks very dense too. Like I've seen like a lot of other orbs in videos that it almost looks translucent. That didn't look translucent at all. It looks very dense, like that Vanta Black, like you talked about almost. It's very dark.
Yeah. And then we have this shadow figure that Brian was talking about. It's kind of hard to see because he zooms in, but just know that when we tell you that there was nothing in that door frame, there was nothing in that.
Very, very obvious. Something's standing in the door frame.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
I'm like leaning over, peeking like it can see me.
Yeah, it's like right there. That's an open doorway with a lamp by there, by the way. It's just standing there, like menacingly, like SpongeBob, dude. It's just like watching us.
And we were like, we should get into this room because I feel like I think it was you or your wife said like, I need to get out of this hallway. Something's coming. Which is like, it makes sense now. Like something was freaking coming.
It was.
What's weird too is that I like pan the camera into this thing, and this voice sounds like it says portal. I think. Yeah, we were so blind.
Oh yeah, I almost ran into the wall. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, oh, it's the door. Yeah, we're doing our best to navigate this. It's such a how many square feet is it? It's absolutely crazy.
10,000. It's right here.
Wow, that's big.
So when he turns around and I pan left. I heard it.
It's really fast.
And then it's like portal. And I look over my shoulder to the left because the more you do paranormal stuff, the more like spidey senses that you have. And I just felt like something was staring at me. And I looked right at it. It's just this massive, like, black shadow, just like.
Do you notice it here in this moment that you're looking at that, or is this something?
No, so you can see with the infrared lighting and everything, but we couldn't see. I could barely see Dillon in front of me right there.
Yeah,
it's like absolute pitch darkness.
Yeah, it was super dark. It was just really weird because, like, if you watch this here in a second, like, I don't know if I'm tripping, but I might think now I watch it again, like the shadow almost like appear, like in the doorway. Like I see like a black shadow, like move almost over my shoulder. I'm not entirely sure though. I have no idea, but it's there. It's weird.
Yeah,
and there's also there's been stories about a giant. So in that hotel, it's an old cowboy town. Famous outlaws like Jim Miller. Gosh, who's the other gentleman? Jim Miller. Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie Parker was jailed right across the street from the Old Park Hotel in that jail. There are a bunch of famous outlaws: Emmanuel Manning Clemens, John Wesley Hardin, stuff like that. They all have a footprint in Ballinger, Texas. And when people have gone to the hotel, they've had this report of this giant shadow figure comes screaming. When I say screaming, I don't mean at a pace. I mean audibly screaming down the hallway, running at them. And it's like this 6-7 foot tall shadow that screams.
That's terrifying.
And I don't know, maybe that's who we captured standing in that doorway, but it looks
weird. Big enough to be that. It filled the doorway almost.
We caught a bunch of it was literally just off. It was a different kind of haunting. It just felt like when you were navigating, like you were just going to get like jumped in the shit beat out of you. And there was just a lot of like audible noises and like footsteps in the hallways and going up and down the stairs. And we caught this voice upstairs. That it's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Brian, literally, it's the most scared I've ever seen him.
Cats they get scared and they're just like, they're gone.
Yeah. Do you jump up? Your hair's
the only time I've ever, other than getting ghost grabbed on my inner thigh in Hell House, it's the only time I've had to like run out of a space.
That would be fucking scary, bro. I don't.
So funny, dude.
It's weird because they'll show the video, but like I felt like something was directing an attack at me, and I felt it like coming at me, like somebody was. You'll see.
Yep. So we hear this weird noise. You'll hear it.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything.
Is the audio not playing, Dillon?
Yeah.
Is it not?
I don't think so.
Let me stop sharing. Let me reshare screen. Can you hear it now? Can you hear that?
Nope.
Well, anyway, long story short, we hear this like whistle, or we hear this whooshing noise, like somebody faking like a pistol, like a revolver shot. And I can feel it like come out of the doorway where I'm like pointing. I'm like, do you hear that? Like, because I feel like for an hour straight, there was these footsteps and somebody just pacing back and forth. It felt really like.
So you think maybe something was playing with you, like gotcha?
Maybe I'll at least show you his reaction. It's pretty funny. It comes up here in a second.
Yeah.
I know there's no sound, but you'll at least.
Yeah, we got a good camera angle of it. I'm out of there.
Whoa.
I come back, though. Okay. I'm just like, well, what is
It's all right, man.
No, it felt like somebody somebody tried to shoot me. That was my instinct. I thought somebody was trying to shoot me. That was the message that was given to me. I felt like somebody was trying to like shoot me in my chair.
I feel like you scared Dillon more than whatever happened.
No, he heard it and he felt it too. He felt there was like a directional attack, like this thing like purposely like
right.
I was hardwired into my freaking shotgun microphone too. I had earbuds on the shotgun microphone, so you can imagine how loud I heard it. Holy shit, dude.
That's funny.
It was like, yeah, Brian, it was startled the shit out of me. I'm not gonna lie. Like it scared both of us. And then it just, nothing ever helps. Like when you're startled and then one person or the other like jumps up frantically or like shits themselves. And it just makes the situation way more frantic.
Right.
But the difference between us and some other people is like, yeah, we can get startled or whatever, but we'll quickly compose and be like, all right, do that again. You know what I mean?
I don't
like,
see how you couldn't get startled. So hats off to you guys for real. Like that scream that you guys showed us. I don't know how you just said fuck it and walked off, man. That was pretty terrifying. I'd have considered it, that's for sure.
You get to a point where you're like, damn, I'm so grateful like I captured that, because that's why we were there. You know,
Right.
It's not like it's like even our experience with Hill House and Toby, like, you know, as scary as that was, it's like, hey, we documented it, man. That was our goal. We achieved our goal, even though it was terrifying. It's like trying to, you know, document and, you know, being an emergency reporter or something. Like you keep filming, dude. Like you just or like a combat photographer. You just got to keep filming. Like your job is to document.
Right.
And, you know, the more you do it, the more you can look back and say, we've been through worse.
Right. I mean, how are you going to get experience?
Exactly. And, you know, that's one of the things that we do have boatloads of. I'm not taking shots at anybody. It's just that when we tell people that we have, you know, because a lot of people in the paranormal are like, well, how long have you been doing this for? I'm like, handful of years. And they're like, you know, whatever. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like you have gone through your whole career listening to audio recordings and hearing one boot step or like whatever and being spooked about it. Like we've literally had our balls blown off by the devil. And we're, you know what I mean? Like we've had these experiences on magnitude that are like hand over fist more than other people. And we know this, and I can say this, sound cocky, sound arrogant, whatever. I'll say it publicly. We know this because people that go to Hill House and have these experiences are like freaked the fuck out. Like, oh yeah, we're experienced 30 years of doing this. And they don't even make it through the night. You know what I mean? Like that's how we know we have like reputable, intense acts.
Even Satanists or people who were like, they thought themselves to be of the dark occult. They're like, we're not Satanists anymore because of how scary that experience was with an actual real demon, like in the same space as you. Yeah. They're like, we were totally wrong about Satanism and what it stood for. And Dillon, they told it to you, so I don't want to steal the story.
Yeah, so individuals' identity is protected and source protected because, you know, this is private conversations. They were at a specific location, and you could probably presume, but these individuals were Satanists, or at least one of them was a Satanist, and they had an interaction with Toby. And I feel like a lot of people that are Satanists do it to be edgy and cool. It's like, you know, like the hot topic of religion, you know, and they had an interaction with a real demonic force, and they figured that that was way too fucking intense for their liking, and they had an understanding of what they were actually dabbling in, and they left the house and they took holy oil and holy water and said that this is not the path for me.
Dude, you for me, and my opinion on the whole Satanist thing, especially now that it's like getting a little bit more prominence for whatever reason, I agree with you, man. It's people that I think it is just like wanting attention, or somebody that's been hurt in some way that is seeing some sort of validation.
I'll tell you what I think it is, Brandon. I think it's people don't believe in God. They don't believe in spirits. They think it's stupid. They want to make fun of you for believing in something that you know, shepherds or farmers used to believe thousands of years ago. They think it's a fairy tale. They don't think it's real. They think that when you die, there's nothing left. So they don't believe. So they want to protest, you know, the big religions. They want to protest this, and the protest is with the symbol of Baphomet, with the symbol of like Satan, with the sabbatical goat. And half of Satanists don't believe that this is an actual entity that can interact with you in the physical world. They just get behind it. It's about the power of symbolism and rebellion, you know. And a lot of people think that they're doing the right thing. They think that you know, this is a just cause because we're going against tyranny, you know, which to an extent, you know, that might be true, you know. But you know, once like Dillon said, once this person actually experienced a demonic force in the flesh, and it's not a fairy tale, it's not a book, it's not an archetype, it's not something you can study and be like, well, that's cool. Like, no, this thing threatened my life and it tried to scratch me, you know. So it puts things into perspective. Like this isn't an idea anymore. This isn't a set of morals or beliefs to make me a better person. This is something that is actually real. This is something that exists.
Yeah.
And you can physically, tangibly experience it, you know?
No, I think
You know,
you said better what I was trying to say than I was going to say it. So I agree with you.
And I'm passionate
and
about it, man. I'm super passionate. If you can't
Yeah.
tell, I'm passionate about it. Like I believe if you believe in something, you need to take a stand for it. You know, if that's what you believe, like go ahead.
And there are people that do dive in that are real deal, right? There's people that are on the Anton Zender LaVey level of Santinism, which talks about like basically it's like a organized religion as Christianity or whatever Catholicism would be. But then there's the deep dark of Satanism and occultism in that realm of ritualism and blood sacrifice and all that stuff. And there are people that are down for that cause,
Right.
and that's very real. And those people believe that, and that's a very real thing to us. Like I said, we would never participate in a satanic ritual, but fuck me, would I like to film one and be in the room with it, just see what happens.
I've not gone looking in a while, but I will every once in a while look to find somebody who's just like gone undercover in like the satanic church and caught something like that on video. I've never seen anything like that. I just think people are, I don't know if they're too afraid to, or like you have to build a lot of trust, kind of like trying to like be an insider with the mob, right? Like you got to do all this shit to prove that you mean what you're saying.
Yeah, or like filming the Masons or anything like that. Like it's probably a secret. You don't film this thing. You don't document it. You don't talk about it unless you're a part of it.
Right.
Yeah. And if you are a part of it and you want us to film your dark rituals, let us know. If you try to partake me in the ritual, I will fight back. I just say that. But I'm not publicly.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be really interested to see that side of religion and like that side of like black magic and like if wherever you can find that. I mean, I can't imagine what the energy feels like in there. Like what the fuck is going on in there? Like I really want to know just out of curiosity. But yeah,
it's so weird because that sort of belief system has injected itself into places that I would have never thought until I really started like, researching and like getting into the podcast thing. But a couple episodes ago, we talked about Jack Parsons, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. Jack Parsons, and Aleister Crowley. It's so weird. Like I said, where that occultism injects itself, it maybe is not so weird now that I say it out loud, because we talked before about the overlaps between like science and spirituality, right? So Jack Parsons thought that he was being given information from the other side. But it is really weird that tends to take a darker turn when it comes to wanting to know about rocket science, right? You are going to the darker side for that info. That seems kind of strange.
Well, it's because demons, just like Asmodeus, if you read in his, we were dipping into the Ars Goetia, which talks about his descriptions. I mean, he's the all-knowing of astrology, astronomy, geometry, mathematics, all that stuff. They hold these pieces of knowledge that people reach out to and they want to gain because they'll give it to them. I mean, this shit's like for real, bro. Like I stumbled upon a website when I was searching for haunted objects to buy for our collection, and I stumbled upon a website that you can pay a black magician to like do all sorts of really bad things to people, including miscarriages, stuff like that, like hexes and demonic curses and stuff like that from like deep ancient knowledge.
You don't have to go too far, dude. You can just go on Etsy.
What?
Yeah.
On Etsy?
Oh, yeah. Go on Etsy and just start typing in like demons or demonological occult, like this and that, and then all of a sudden your search history will be like, make a pact with the demon. I need your name, your date of birth.
Etsy.
Yeah, no, seriously. And then hey, you're gonna get rich. You're gonna have that person fall in love with you, but you've made a pact with the demon, and God knows what kind of impact that's gonna have on your soul when you pass away. Or maybe you pass away.
I've literally only gone on Etsy for like old sports memorabilia. I did not know that other shit was on there.
Oh, dude, Etsy's weird, bro. You can go on Etsy for almost anything, including what we're talking about. So,
I was looking for a copy of, for our museum that we want to start up. I was looking for a copy of Anton Zender LaVey's The Satanic Bible, like an old copy just to have, because I think it's like interesting to have all pieces of this realm. And I stumbled upon literally like I'm on eBay right now, right? And you can literally like there's literally like all sorts of like witchcraft magic ritual potions, altar Satan Baphomet, Church of Satan Baphomet flag, altars, real haunted hellhound, Satan statue, great power, like all this stuff. But there was one specific item that I was looking for where this lady legitimately builds these very, very, Brian, you remember that I was showing you that?
Yeah, they're like almost like it's like the Ark of the Covenant, but for demons, and it's like how you
dude, like these,
like they're allegedly that like the spirits will speak out of these objects that she'll give to you, and it's like a conduit for, it's
like
good, bro.
Super serious stuff, like an altar to Zarla, who is the daughter of Lilith, and in Satanism, what's his name, Paimon, who's a very high level demon. She builds these altars, she prays to them, she communes with these demons, and then she sells them to people, saying, hey, like, I've crafted this altar, and they're demented looking, and I want them, one, because I want to display them, and two, not to practice with them, but I think they're just like a piece of our collection we want to be is called the As Above So Below collection, so like holy artifacts and like unholy artifacts, and that was one of the pieces that I was looking at. But they are demented looking, and you can buy them, and they're for $166.66.
Of course they are. Are you just terrified of what you could be doing to yourself? Like, full, being frank, right? Like, are you worried that you could cause yourself some sort of harm?
No, because I know there's consequences, and I say consequences with air quotes. This is my personal belief, and then Brian can speak on his. My personal belief is that like these items, there's people from all over the world that collect these items, right? Now, some of them may hold paranormal properties, some of them may not hold paranormal properties. But, being inside of Zach Bagan's museum, I know that all that shit that he has in that museum, a lot of it has very, very, very serious paranormal energy attached to it, like the Dybbuk box, Peggy the doll, Jack Kevorkian's suicide van, stuff like that. The Kansas City butchers of actual items and stuff like that. And these people are still alive, sane, and healthy. You know what I mean? Like, sure, like, I feel like if you take the proper steps to like cleanse yourself and as you leave these places, like, you're good. Like, I
it's
think,
like what I said earlier. They serve their purpose, and if that purpose is to strike fear, or if that purpose is to create like despair or woe on earth. My dad would always say something. He's like, you can't understand the beauty of a rose if you don't know how ugly a spider is. Because if everything was just roses and sunshine, then you wouldn't care, right? If there was no darkness, there would be nothing to compare it to. You wouldn't appreciate it. So,
right.
Human beings need to struggle, if we're just given everything, which we are in this society. And then we wonder why we're depressed. We wonder why we're not fulfilled. We wonder why we're not happy. We don't have a spiritual relationship with our higher power or with God, whatever God is to you. And that's the serious aspect of being a human being. And if you can't appreciate it, you can't understand it, then what's the point of it all? And I think there is inherent risk in anything that you do, spiritual, especially when communicating with an alleged infernal spirit, right? But it serves its purpose, right? What does it do? It strikes fear into people. Even if you were to show them this box and it's completely bogus, right? You're telling them, hey, this thing, it's this kind of demon. This is what he stands for. And people are like, oh, God, no. They'll start praying. What is it? It served its purpose. People are believing in God now. They're believing in good, like fighting evil, right? So it serves its purpose, however you want to look at it, whether that be good or whether that be bad. That's the way I try to look at it. And do I believe that there is an inherent level of risk? Yeah, of course. But it's a risk that I believe some people are called to take. And I'm not saying that me and him are collecting evil items or cursed items because we're Satanists and we worship demons. We don't. We worship God, right? And it's important to show this to other people, right? It's like we spoke to you in the beginning. Like, we want to prove to you that this is real, because we're not doing this for fun. We're not doing this to make money. We believe this is real, and we believe that spirituality is important, and people need to understand that, and that it's something it's around all of us all the time. And if we're disconnected from it, which we are in society, we have all these things pulling us in every single direction to keep you distracted, to keep you from having a relationship with a higher power. it's all by design, man. So we're really trying to just spread the message that this stuff is real and it's important.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people,
yeah,
and I think a lot of people, with what he just said, will not believe us that we're not in it for money. Like, we're not. Like, any money that we're gonna make, like off of YouTube potentially or merchandise or whatever, is gonna go straight into, helping book locations and buying objects and perpetuating just like travel, stuff like that. It's not going in our pockets. Like, it's not for fame and fortune. Like you said, like we have these objects that we want to display and want people to see because we want that people to feel their energy, hear their stories, and we're not zealots. We're not like Brian was talking about, like showing people this message in this way. It's not a mission. It's not. We're not out here trying to convert you to a religion or convert you to anything. It's just like, hey, like this stuff is real. This is the objects that we have. Like like when we went to Paranormal Fest and we displayed our Mama Lola doll, like people were stopping in their tracks, not even looking in the same direction as our booth. They would stop on their tracks and whip their head over to the display case where we had this doll in, and they said, "What is that?" Say, this is a very powerful voodoo doll that we have. They're like, yeah, I can like feel that. It like drew me over here. I'm like, yeah, because it's real. It's a real thing. This is a very powerful doll. This thing has very powerful energy associated. Like, yeah, I can tell. Or our Ouija board that we had that was in the film The Attached, that was scratching and bruising this teenage girl and her mother. Like, people didn't like that thing. Like, they felt its energy. And like you could see it.
Yeah, I had one man roll up and he was just like, "What's this? Like, why is there a Ouija board?" He was just like, he started to have like heart palpitations. He's like, "I gotta go." He's like, "I'm sorry, it's nothing personal." He's like, "That thing's evil," and he just stormed off. I didn't see him again.
Oh shit!
Yeah. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go.
And it's really just about like making people aware that these things are real, because I think that when you talk about in terms of, we talked about possession and spirit conduiting and, spirits jumping into people and all that stuff, like the more aware you are that they exist, doesn't mean that you don't have to go down the rabbit hole of believing everything's a ghost. It's just making yourself aware to their presence. And I think that makes you less susceptible to, falling to the traps of negative energy, because you can identify it. And the more people that we can, believe in the paranormal is awesome for us. Cause it's like, I'm possibly getting med boarded from the military, and I've had all these things that are then gone on in our Brian and I's life that we feel have pulled us in this direction of like having this passion of the paranormal and just like sharing stuff with the world, because it's what we deeply believe is true and real. And we just want people to feel that what we feel when we realize that ghosts are real, because it's a life-changing experience. It's one of those things to where when you finally believe that ghosts are real because you've had that experience, it does a whole bunch of things. And the religious stuff aside, I believe so strongly that the other side is real, that if I were to die in the next 6 months, that I'd be okay with it. That I would know that it's not the end. I am that convinced.
I could die tomorrow. I thought I was going to die in a plane crash. I was traveling today, and I'm like, well, I know I'll be good. Like, it's not the end. Like, my body will go, but I'm going to move on. So
good old turbulence.
You must have had some pretty bad turbulence if you were thinking about that.
Oh yeah, the flight attendants became airborne for a split second. I was like, oh god.
You guys hit a UFO.
I was saying the Lord's Prayer over and over and over, and I'm like, oh god,
right,
it worked.
But yeah, it's just one of our things, and we just hope that people will give us a chance and watch our stuff. And we've said before, like, we're not the Paranormal Files, we're not Twin Paranormal. We have our own narrative that we have our own style.
That's why I like
we're not Hollywood. We're not Hollywood producers. We try our best to give the most credible and entertaining videos that we can. And we're just getting better as time goes on. But, we just ask that people give us a chance and know that we're not bullshitting you and we're not pulling the wool over your eyes. And we just want to share these awesome experiences that we've gathered. And like, hey, this is real.
Yeah, we're not overhyped. We're not pausing to sell you our products. We're not trying to convert you to any religion. We're just trying to share with you what we experience and what we believe to be true and important, and we want to share that with you. That's all.
Yep.
Well, I think I've said it probably 100 times to you guys, either tonight and other conversations we've had, but the evidence that you guys have shown me and the stuff that I've seen from what you guys put up on YouTube and Instagram is all pretty astounding evidence. And as I've said before, it is some of the best evidence I've ever seen. And I think that you guys do a really, really good job of exhibiting how real this is from a very objective standpoint. And you let people come to those conclusions because you're just trying to help them down that path. And I think that's very evident in just what you guys do and how you do it. And I think you guys do a really, really good job of that.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we definitely try our best. We don't, like I said, like it's not about fame, it's not fortune, you know. It's not about any of that. Like, hey, if you see some ads on our YouTube channel, it's not because we're trying to make $1 million. It's just that we're trying to help ourselves out, film more videos, get more objects, go more places. Like that's the objective.
Right. Yeah. Like I want to be able to afford a trip to Sally House and not like have to take out a second mortgage.
if that happens, I'm totally going to Atchison with you guys. That has been like
I actually just had a buddy.
Yeah.
I just had a buddy that was at Sally House. Tuck, he's one of the lone wolves of Hill House, and he said it was he gives like a spooky factor for all the places, and he gives Hill House an 11, and he gives Sally House a strong 9.
Wow.
Yeah, and he is a stalwart man when it comes to the paranormal. Like Toby could show up and like punch him in the face. He'd be like, "Huh, what else you got?" And he's one of those guys.
Good for him, man.
Yeah, and he's calling it a 9.
Yeah, right. If he's calling that a 9, then I definitely have to go to Hill House with you guys. I hate how expensive it is to travel and do shit because I really want to go and do this stuff with you because I believe
we gotta hunt Bigfoot too. We got to come down to you,
dude. Yes, if I come visit you guys, you got to come visit me, and we'll go to the Redwoods and we'll do some tapping and set some quartz piles up and shit. Just see what happens.
Done.
Yeah. Well, MP Paranormal, you guys are amazing. This will definitely not be the last time we have you guys on. Obviously, I think it's very easy to find value in what you guys do. So for you listening, I just want to say up front again, if you listen to this episode audio only, please go watch it and go look at the evidence that these guys have out there and go check out their social media. Go check out their YouTube. Look at what they have. It's pretty remarkable stuff. Give them a follow, subscribe. Check us out, give us a follow, subscribe as well. But you guys, dude, thank you so much for coming on and showing what you guys have. It's never a dull moment with you two.
Thanks, Brandon.
We appreciate that, brother. Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Absolutely.
Again.
Yeah, I'll link you guys as a page and wherever we drop, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and Google, so people listening can go find you guys as well. So,
sweet man, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
What's going on, Fire fans? I Came With Fire podcast is sponsored by Red Clover Coffee and Sheep's Clothing LLC. Red Clover Coffee is a veteran-owned company with small batch roasted coffees, and they just happen to donate to some pretty awesome charities. Whether you're into specialty flavored coffees, single source coffees, or having a really cool coffee mug and some badass slaps, Red Clover has you covered. You can order ground, whole bean, or even coffee pods and get it all at 10% off your entire purchase using coupon code CAMEWITHFIRE. Again, that's 10% off your entire purchase using our coupon code CAMEWITHFIRE. I personally love their Blueberry Invasion and African Roast. That Blueberry Invasion hits the spot. Head over and get yourself some awesome coffee and support us by supporting our sponsor. I Came With Fire podcast is also sponsored by Sheep's Clothing LLC. Sheep's Clothing LLC is a unifying banner for all violent arts, disciplines, professions, and survivors of violent circumstances. Redefine violence. Both Zach and I being survivors of violent circumstances and LEOs in the military, we are especially excited to be able to offer you 10% off your entire purchase with coupon code FIRE10 at checkout. Whether you're looking for an awesome t-shirt, hats, slaps, flags, or MMA gear, they've got you covered. Me personally, I love my snapback with the leather patch surrounded by God's flannel. If you know, you know. That's coupon code FIRE10, FIRE10 at checkout for 10% off your entire purchase. Thank you all so much for supporting this podcast, and if you should feel compelled, treat yourself by supporting our sponsors as well. They truly make a difference for us. Now let's make a difference for them. See you on the next show.